What is up, everyone, and welcome back to some more Higurashi. In the previous recording session, we got the story kicked off. There hasn't been any major developments quite yet, other than the little tidbit about the dismemberment case from a few years back. But we haven't gotten to any real exciting stuff quite yet. Although, after I finished that first recording session that same day, I got to thinking, alright? I know several times throughout that first recording session I kept going, is this foreshadowing? Ooh, is this foreshadowing? Is this foreshadowing? But I think I've discovered some more foreshadowing. At least what I feel like could potentially be some foreshadowing, or at least something that's going to be referenced later on, right? So I started thinking about it. I don't know the specifics of what the curse is that befalls the village or how that manifests, right? But I started to think like, I think there's some deeper meaning in the games that the kids are playing, right? Like they're not just games. There's something more to it that feels like they're trying to tell us, right? Because I started thinking about, like, they played zombie tag, right? I started thinking about it like, oh, someone who manages to blend in with a crowd of others by acting like they belong with the rest of them. Like, I don't know how that could play into the events that transpire in the future, but I'm like, seems like an interesting thing to keep in mind. And then it made me think about the first game that Keiichi played with the girls, where it came down to that, really close decision, right? All or nothing, all on the line, pick the right card. And about how overthinking his decision led to him going the wrong way, right? Making the wrong choice. Once again, I don't know how that could play into whatever transpires in the future. But I don't know, I feel like there's something more with those games they're playing. So I don't know how many more games we're gonna see here in this first chapter, but I feel like there's definitely some lessons to keep in mind that comes out of these games that I feel like have a very good chance of being applicable in the future. But without further ado, let's just jump back into it. For arriving home, I quickly made preparations to head out once again. Where is this picking out from? Isn't this like shortly after he Oh, fuck. Log. It's not gonna tell me anything because I just loaded up. God damn it. Because there was what? There was his little picnic date with the class. And then I feel like after that, didn't he go back to the dump to help Reina again? And then that's when he discovers, like, the magazines. Reina comes back with a hatchet and he gets scared. I think that's where this is immediately picking up from. I think. I guess we'll find out when I actually keep going. So after arriving home, I quickly made preparations to head out once again. I'd agreed to meet with Reina to dig Colonel Sanders out of that mountain of treasure from before. Right. Because the first time it ended, he was like, I will have to do it later. There's not enough time of the day.
母さん、うちに軍手ってあるかな?
表の物置の中になかった? タオルは洗面所ね.
Alright. Now it was all ready. Looking at me, my mom stared quizzically.
何、ケイチ? すごいいでたちでどこへお出かけ?
If they come to dump again illegally, he'll be buried completely and it'll be impossible to dig him out. And if that happens, Reina will undoubtedly go after Colonel Sanders in front of the fried chicken place in town.
ちょっと発掘に、クラスメートを犯罪者にしないために。
はあ? あまり遅くならないようにね。
I was just like, huh? Well, whatever, kid. Sure. Mom returned to the kitchen with a puzzled expression still on her face. Going through the woods as a shortcut to the dam site, I ran into someone. The photographer? Yeah. Tomitake? Yep. It was Tomitake-san. Probably taking pictures of wild birds again with that precious camera of his. Couldn't be that. It couldn't be that all he took pictures of was handsome young men in the twilight. Way to stroke your own ego, dude.
ケイイチ君だったよね。
どうもその説は。
I expelled the rude imagery from my head and greeted him without inciting anything.
そういえば彼女は君の知り合いだよね。
He was probably talking about Reina. Guessing by the way Tomitake-san was shaken up.
あれは一体何だったんだい。彼女が不気味のナタを持って歩いてるんだよ。それもニヤニヤと笑いながら。
That was Reina without a doubt. I expect that she was grinning in anticipation of taking Colonel Sanders home.
身に危険を察して隠れたけど、警察に電話した方がいいんじゃないかな。
Now, you probably should, but we're gonna say no. Though it certainly would be quite the spectacle for a girl of her age to be roaming around with a hatchet. Tomitake-san's reaction was the epitome of logical.
いいんですいいんです。ほっといてください。また犠牲者を探して徘徊しているだけですから。
Looking for more victims, Jesus Christ. Tomitake-san was alarmed by my crass response. Well, it's probably hard for normal people to understand Reina. I'll just toss out a bunch of baloney.
富武さんがここで殺されたら、多分犯人はあいつです。せいぜい嗅ぎ回らないようにすることですね。
With a condescending smirk, I started off in the direction of the dam site where Reina was waiting. Before I got too far, Tomitake-san abruptly called out to me.
ケイイチ君、それよそ者の僕への警告のつもりかい？
I didn't mean that seriously. I did try to make it obvious, but...
せいぜい気をつけることにするよ。
Leaving only those words behind, Tomitake-san turned around and left. I didn't really mean to call him an outsider. I wasn't really implying anything when I said that. It was only meant to be a joke, but I felt like I'd said something bad. I understood what Tomitake-san was trying to say. Somebody gallivanting about while waving a hatchet around certainly would seem dangerous.
ナタは鞘とかをかぶせて持ってこい。無気味はさすがにまずいだろ。
なくしちゃったみたいで、ないんだもん。
What do you mean you lost it? Thinking about it, there really was no need to try and keep up appearances. Oh, you lost the cover. Okay, I was like, what do you mean you lost your hatchet? No, she meant the cover. Okay. Everyone in Hinamizawa probably already knew about Reina's eccentricities. She's probably the only person who could carry a hatchet around Hinamizawa and not be considered suspicious.
まあいっか。今日で決めるぜ。最後の針をぶっ壊せば引きずり出せるはずさ。準備万端。任せとけ。
I took the axe from Reina and made my way up the unstable slope.
待っててね、健太くん。今、ケイイチくんが助け出してくれるからね。
よっしゃ、下がってな。一気に蹴りをつけてやるぜ。
A solid thwack rang throughout Hinamizawa as if the job was being done by a lumberjack.
どう？うまくいきそう。無理そうだったら無理しなくていいよ。
ここさえ折れれば、あとはなんとかなる。今日は気力も充実。いける。
But this adversary was far more formidable than I expected. First of all, I'd never used a hatchet before. During a school camping trip, I had wanted to split the wood, but I lost at rock, paper, scissors and wasn't able to do it. Because the spot where I was standing was so unstable, I soon became tired and decided to take a break. Reina had already spread out a tarp and laid down some tea and sweets.
大丈夫。もう一息。今夜レナが寝るときには、健太くんにお休みのキスができるようになってるさ。
ありがとう、健太くん。おやすみのキス。
そういえば、レナも転校生だったんだろ？前はどこに住んでたんだよ？
I asked her nonchalantly while drinking tea. I had thought she'd lived here all her life.
お、関東の方だよ。ここほどじゃないけど、 やっぱり田舎だったかな。
なんで引っ越してきたんだよ、ひなみ沢に。ほら、ここって結構田舎だろ。
圭一君はなんで引っ越してきたの？お父さんの仕事と関係あるのかな？
うちの親父がアトリエを移したいって言い出したんだよ。こういう山奥がいいって前々から言っててさ。
アトリエ？圭一君のお父さんって芸術家さんなの？
風景画ばっかり描いてる。年に2回くらいはどっかで個展を開いてるらしい。
When he started, his works were displayed in an industry plaza in Tokyo, but now they're exhibited in the Makahare Messe. He is determined to have them displayed in the Waterfront International Exhibition Hall.
それってすごいね。
Can't help but notice you really dodged the question there, Reina. I mean, expertly so, I will say.
今度レナにも見せてね。
I was too embarrassed to tell her that I didn't really know what kind of pictures my father painted. Well, eventually I would. I picked myself up while giving some vague answers.
でも楽器途中の転校だったんでしょ？
Yeah, way to shift all the attention back onto him.
大変じゃなかった？
別に都会ってのには飽きてたし。
I was trying to get answers from Reina, but I ended up being the one giving out all the answers. With a bit of a wry smile on my face, I grabbed the handle of the hatchet and headed back to the worksite. The air grew colder as the sun slowly set. The Higurashi began their song, as if to tell me to stop and head home for the day. Just a bit more. Today, I would end it. When I first started, I chatted with Reina as I worked, but now I didn't have that luxury.
ほら、てめえ、ちくしょう。
I had swung the hatchet countless times today, just like this. Contact. Shards of wood splintered. The assailants butchered the victim's body with hatchets and pickaxes. I recalled that passage from the tabloid. One hit with something like this would smash someone's head in. Axes and pickaxes are not meant to be swung at people, ever. With one last swing, the beam cracked apart. The weight I put behind the hatchet not only split through the beam, but smashed the statue's shoulder as well. No! The arm came off with a sickening sound. It clattered down noisily, stopping at my feet.
どうしたの？大丈夫？
ごめん、人形の腕壊しちゃったよ。
なんだ、圭一君が怪我をしたんじゃないかって思っちゃった。
I probably had a really guilty look on my face. Reina said that without a hint of dismay as she
ガム
smiled.
テープとかでくっつけて、その上に上着を着せるもの。
I just put a coat on him.
絶対わからないよ。
そっか。じゃあ引っ張り出そうぜ。そっち持ってくれるか。
They still haven't found one of the arms. God damn it, Keiichi. I laughed dryly at how pathetic I was for considering the arm flopping down rolling to my feet to be such a bad omen. I mean, probably not wrong. Both Reina and Mio knew how sickening that incident was, so they pretended that they didn't know. I'd looked it up all by myself, and shamefully enough, I was scared.
情けないぜ、前原圭一。よっしゃ、レナ、一気に行くぞ。せーの。
やったよ、圭一君。わーい。
The right time to give 3 cheers. That moment of 2 days of work bearing fruit. He who was brought to Hinamizawa covered in filth to meet his end. Instead, we were able to welcome him back. You're pretty lucky, Colonel Sanders. Your new master is a pretty decent person.
わあ、健太君だ。やっぱかいいよ。
Didn't matter that he was dirty. Reina nuzzled him cheerfully with her cheek. I was dead tired, but seeing Reina's happy face made it all worth it.
じゃあ手伝うから持っていこうぜ。暗くなるとまずいだろう。
そうだね、圭一君。本当にありがとうね。この恩は忘れないね。
恩返しは何がいいか、よく考えておくよ。
どんな恩返しだろう。恩返しだろう。
For now, I just hold back my evil cackle. We were ready to take it to her house, but we couldn't go like this. We rolled the statue up in the tarp and lifted him. Oh god. So you're gonna be carrying something shaped like a body in a tarp and just be, carrying that through the woods. Fuck, I hope you run into Tomitake again. And so Jack and Jill went down the hill, carrying a human-sized bag and an unsheathed hatchet. Yeah. I prayed that we wouldn't run into Tomitake-san. He saw us here, took a picture. We'll need to get rid of him. Lol. Is that meant to be a warning for an outsider like me? Something struck me as odd about the words Tomitake-san, unable to grasp my sense of humor, had left behind. Oh, new tips. What kind of name is Reina? Is Reina not a, like, common name? I feel like I've seen the name Reina spelled differently. I've seen R-E-I-N-A, Reina. Is just Reina not that common? Is it really that weird?
レナがいないです。ケイイチは知りませんですか？
あれ、たった今までそこにいたのにな。おいミオ、レナはどこ行ったんだ？
レナ？覗きたいなら止めないけど通報するからね。
I hadn't heard anything about that.
さとこ、レナを知りませんですか？レナさんですの？さっき廊下ですれ違いましたよ。レナさんは日直だから花壇にお水をやらないといけませんので。
ああ、レナが日直か。そりゃお疲れ様なことで。
Reina, Reina, Reina. Upon hearing it repeated, a thought came to mind. It's rude to say this about someone's name, but it was a weird name. It was like some foreigner's name.
レナってどういう名前なんだろうな。レナって漢字だとどうなるんだ？
レナはあだ名なのです。ちゃんとした名前がありますですよ。
Oh.
え、そうなのか？俺はてっきり竜宮レナってのが本名だと思ってたよ。
まあ確かにレナさんとしか呼んでませんから間違えるのも無理はないですわね。
She even signs her name as Reina. It's like it's her real name in school.
本当の名前はなんて言うんだろうな。レナが戻ってきたら聞いてみるから。
Satoko and Rika-chan looked at each other.
聞かなくてもいいですよ。僕たちが教えてあげますです。お礼の礼にならのな。竜宮レーナが本名ですのよ。
Her name is Reina, but we take the E out and just call it Reina.
レイナか。それでレイナじゃなくてレナって読むのか？面白い読み方だよな。
いいえ、違いますです。レイナでだ。レナさんが言ったのですわ。レナと呼んでほしいって。だからレナさんなのですわ。
She would say something like that. I may have only known this girl for a few hours, but that does totally seem like something she'd say. Just, Reina, not Reina, Reina.
ケイちゃん、レナはレナだよ。レーナって呼ぶのは他人だけ。そこんとこ分かってるよね。
I understood what Mion was saying. It didn't matter what her real name was, only what names we used between us. Reina Yugu is Reina. She's nobody other than that.
思ったんだけどさ、自己申請すれば俺も今日からあだ名で呼ばれるのか？
Call him Kechi. Take the E's out of the middle of his name. His name's Kechi now.
面白けりゃね。
If
なんて
it's
呼ばれた
good.
いわけ？
If your nickname's bullshit, we will have to kill you.
越後屋。
Well, that's dumb. Reina then came back into the classroom. One of the juniors near the door told Reina people were looking for her.
あれあれ、誰かレナのことを探してたかな？かな？
Seeing that both Mion and I sneered.
お代官様、竜宮めがまんまと現れましたぞ。
いちごや、主も悪よな。
何かな？ケイチ君とミーちゃんが悪代官だよ。いちご屋だよ。
おのれ竜宮レナの助。
Reina Nosuke!
100年目でおじゃる。い ざ覚悟。
スケさん、カクさん、懲らしめてやりなさい。あやいさですわ。報酬はスイス銀行に入れてほしいのです。
Since it's come to this, we have no choice. We'll just have a grand battle with 5 people. Lena's fierce punches exploded just as soon as she had shown her seal. The evil that was Mion and myself was vanquished in the
レ
end.
ナにはぜひ世直しの旅に出てもらいたいもんだ。永田町なんかどうだ？
ダメだよ。旅先で可愛いものちょろまかすから。
The toll of the bell signaled that break time was over.
ほらほら、ケイチ君もみーちゃんも先生来るよ。
Took Rena's hand and stood up. It was just as the teacher had entered the classroom. Just one more hour. Man, oh man. Got to buckle down for one more. Reina no Suke. Alright, onward we go.
どうだったケイちゃん。
レナさんの家に行ったでございますか？すごかったでしょ。そんなことないよね。
Unlike my house, the Ryugu residence wasn't newly constructed. It had been renovated from a pre-existing building. Well, the house itself was fine. The problem was the yard. There, it was crammed with rows upon rows of oddities. They were all the same as Colonel Sanders, stuff you'd see while walking around in town. The cake shop's mascot, Lil Licky. The Totalmon in front of the pharmacy. She even had the amazing flying elephant from the top of the department store.
そこまでは100歩譲って。だがあの郵便ポストは変だ。ああいうのってまずいんじゃないのか？
だって、はあ、かいだもん。
She must have just thought about it because her face filled with delight.
出かけりゃいいのか？出かけりゃ。
ええ、お部屋には小さいものがごっちゃりと陳列してありますの。前に拝見したことがあるでございますわ。
で、リカちゃんみたいな可愛い子は地下室にしまうのか？
うんうん、なんでもし
Hey, yeah.
はあ、かわいい。
So she takes anything she likes back to her nest. No ill will intended.
なあレナ、ニューヨークに自由の女神ってあるだろ？あれ、可愛いか？
かわいいよ。はあ、欲しいよ。
The US should probably come up with some countermeasures ASAP. If not, the Statue of Liberty really will take a trip to Hinamizawa in the not so distant future.
お待たせしましたです。
Rika-chan had returned.
職員室に呼ばれるなんて面白くないよな。なんかやったのか？
失礼な。リカはケイチさんのような不良とは違うでございます。違うよケイチくん。リカちゃんはお祭りの実行委員さんなの。
祭り？学校の文化祭かなんかの？
ケイちゃんケイちゃん、この前言ったじゃん。村祭りだよ。綿流しのお祭り。
Oh, come to think of it, she did say there'd be a festival at the shrine during the next break.
その綿流しって何なんだ？灯籠流しみたいなもんか？
最後に沢に流すってとこだけは同じかな。
傷んで使えなくなったお布団とかドテラとかにね、ご苦労様って感謝して供養しながら沢に流すお祭りなの。
People living in Hinamizawa dumped their futons and padded cloaks in a stream? It sounds like it'd be a lot of trouble if it backed up the current. Maybe they should just drop some fish in and have a fish wrangling competition. Skewer them and sprinkle a little salt. Oh man, I can smell it already.
それじゃあサマーキャンプですわ。ケイチさんって意外に想像力貧困でございますのね。
なんで俺がくだらん想像をしたことが分かった？
表情に出てましたです。
What sort of face could have expressed what I'd imagined just now? Reina demonstrated for me. I see. No argument here.
に面白いものじゃないけどさ、楽しみにしてりゃいいじゃん。
みんなで行こう。当日は迎えに行くからね。
I don't really feel like going to festivals unless someone asks me to. Well, I wouldn't get bored if these guys were going.
退屈どころか今年もやるぜ。
Mion's proclamation came as she looked at each member in turn. What was this all about? From the way Mion looked, it was probably...
若部の夏の風物詩、綿流し祭4強爆闘。
the cotton drifting 4-demon firefight.
センスねえ。なんだよそのネーミングは。
レナは可愛い名前だと思うけどな。
You would. I tried to object sharply, but since Reina looked happy about it, I decided it was pointless to fight it.
ケイイチもいますから、今年は5強爆闘になりますです。
Riki-chan made a small correction in light of my presence.
で、この仰々しいネーミングの部活動とお祭りがどう結びつくんだ。
日頃部活動で培った実力をご披露するのでございますわ。
その通り。日々の厳しい試練を乗り越えた精鋭中の最精鋭たる我々の実力を。
でも去年は村長さんに怒られたし、今年は迷惑をかけないようにしないとね。つまり露店巡りをしながら部活動をするわけです。
Riki-chan really is the only one who explains things so they make sense. I see, so we'll be exhibiting on those busy festival grounds. Reina was right, of course, that would be a reason for the mayor to get angry.
でも楽しいんだよ。
That was the only point I did not doubt. It would be, without question, fun. The day of the festival was drawing near.
じゃ、それはそれとして今日も始めようかね、部活動。
なーし。
Our voices rang out in unison.
やっぱり人数が多い時はトランプが一番の王道だよね。まさにこれぞテーブルゲームのベーシック。
また乾杯トランプか。
今日は新品。傷はないから本当に条件は互角。
本当でございましょうね。そのカード改めさせてもらいますわ。
Well, that was fair. Just to be safe, everyone checked the cards.
これなら大丈夫だよ。
みんな納得した？じゃあ今日はね、大貧民にしようか。5人って人数もいい感じでしょ。
I don't know that one. Another standard card game. First one to get rid of all their cards wins. But how do you get rid of cards? The basic rules: play a better card than the one before. You can play straights and pairs. There are various techniques that improve the game, like reversals. Because it's such a well-known game, there are a lot of house rules for it as well. The name, for example. In my hometown, we called it Millionaire.
一
Still
応
don't
最
know
後
it.
確認しとくぜ。ジョーカーはオールマイティか。3は3枚でも革命可能か。
ジョーカーはなし。2が最強。革命返しはあり。3でも4枚なきゃ革命不可。
あとね、ゲーム開始時に貧民がいいカードを上納する
I
って
don't
ルー
know
ルが
that,
あるで
but
しょ。
okay.
あれはなしなの。
I was confirming the familiar rules. Satoko looked over at me cautiously. Probably should have tried to look like more of an amateur. I was pretty used to this game. It's President, and it's with a new deck. Today, I might be able to win. I had the gist of the rules now. But that wasn't everything, was it?
今日の罰ゲームは何でございますの？
Right, the penalty.
それなんだけどさ、みんなで何枚かメモに書いて歯医者に引かせるってのはどうかな。
Oh, that seemed like it could be interesting.
ではどぎついのを書いてケイイチさんに引かせてやりますわ。あんまりひどいのを書くと自分で引いた時大変だよ。
負けなきゃいいってんだろ。
わかってるじゃありませんの。
Leon handed out several slips of paper to everybody.
じゃあ適当に書いてこのカバンの中に入れて。負けた人はこの中に手を突っ込んで1枚引くってことで。
Now then, what would be a good penalty? Worst case scenario, you draw what you wrote. Something too intense would be like digging your own grave.
何もなしって書くのは禁じ手にしましょうです。
Rika-chan's casual suggestion caused Mion's hand to lurch to a sudden halt.
何もなしって書いてカードを折ってあるんですの。
I see. Just in case you lost, just grab the note with the folded corner and you'd be safe. That was a good idea. Diabolical as ever, Mion. Rika-chan is quite formidable too, being able to see through that. You couldn't underestimate her, even though she doesn't stand out.
みんな、あんまり意地悪な罰ゲームはやめようね。
Nobody agreed to Reina's proposal. Everyone was ruthless.
大丈夫だよレナ、負けなきゃいいんだからな。
そうだね。よし、頑張ってレナの罰ゲームをみんなに聞かせるぞ。
Reina was quite brutal, even though she usually appeared meek. Better not underestimate her either.
同感ですわ。特にレナの罰ゲームってのがとっても気になるでございます。誰の罰ゲームでも怖いです。
I still don't know what Rika-chan's penalties would be like.
つまりこのゲームには負けられないってはご一同覚悟はいいね。
We all nodded determinedly. Having confirmed that, Mion dealt out the cards. Finally, the battle begins. I had a decent starting hand. Card after card was played in the middle. Not needing Mion to tell them, both Rika-chan and Satoko played their cards without hesitation. Reina and I were the only ones who paused to think. It seemed that Reina genuinely couldn't make up her mind, but I was different. I was like a shark stalking its prey, just waiting for the right time to strike.
これ通るの。じゃあ3出して上がりだぜ。
9いないですの。8、7上がりでございます。5と5上がりますです。じゃあ最後の1枚を捨てて上がり。
気をしたか。
Loser of the first round was, of all people, Mion. And now I was certain. Today, I could win. Yeah, they're definitely not letting you get that false sense of confidence going.
じゃあみーちゃん、この中から1枚引いてね。
Mion, accepting her defeat, scrounged around inside the bag and pulled out one piece of paper.
誰これ。書いたやつ誰。
Mion quivered and shrieked.
どうなの。
Reina was also surprised when she peeked at it. What kind of terrible thing was written on it? Pet the principal on the head.
ちょっと待て、これがどうやばいんだ。
圭一さんは気づきます。校長先生は頭髪が薄いことを恥ずかしがってますの。
Satoko yelled with a serious look on her face. But she wasn't as loud as Mion's shriek. What could it be?
校長先生は武道の達人なのです。若い頃は世界を修行して回って武術の奥義を極めきったと豪語してますの。戦後の日本の教育の乱れを憂いて教育者に転校したんだって。
Amazing. He was inhuman. Pet that guy's head?
部長の私が模範を示さないわけにはいかないね。
She bellowed out a yell as she dashed off down the hallway.
静かにこっそり行って穏便に済ます方が有利じゃないのか。
Ah, it's not Mion's style.
多分無理だよ。だって気配でアメフラシが探せるって言ってたし。
I could do nothing but wait with bated breath. A rumble shook the classroom.
校長先生、超奥義発動です。
The principal's special launcher move. Following the launcher with a jab jab strong fierce combo. He's even using meter. He's even using meter. Oh fuck.
ジークンドーだな。
From how it sounded, the principal's jumping fear sounds like a multi-hit combo.
知らないよ。食らいたくないもん。
Nothing I could do now except stay calm. I understood now why there were no delinquents at this school. After a few moments of silence, Mion slumped back to
撫
us.
でた。これでいい。
Mion said before collapsing.
とりあえず生きてますわ。ゲーム続行は可能でございますわ。
鬼。
I was amazed the person who made club activities like these could say that.
でもこれで一番おっかない罰ゲームはね。
Reina tried to lighten the mood, was only met with Mion's malicious grin. She was serious now.
もう手加減しないからね。あんたたちにも思い知らせてやろうじゃん。
Pace of the game became bizarrely quick. I could tell the game had gotten more intense.
S345 あっかりー。
これで僕も上がりますです。
へへ、俺も上がらせてもらうぜ。
これで上がりですな。負けちゃったよ。
And the heavens chose to vanquish Reina.
どんな罰ゲームだろう。
It wasn't exactly hard for her to be worried. Just thinking of the level of difficulty of Mion's first penalty still made me quiver. And so, the penalty she drew with trembling fingers was... The heck was this? Speak like a maid?
なにこれ。これってどうすればいいの？ってことはつまりそういう口調で喋れということではございます。はい、ご主人様。
It hit me like a ton of bricks. I had no idea who wrote that penalty, but she was awesome.
じゃあレナ、カードを集めてみんなに。
はい、ご主人様。
I could just die right now.
とにかくなあレナ。
はい、ご主人様。
The eagerness to which I was goading Reina into addressing me as master was downright impressive, if I do say so myself.
うりゃ、もう負けないよ。上がり。
私も絶対負けられないでござい。上がりましたです。
ならこれで俺も。あ、
またレナの負けでございますか？
Reina again. What kind of penalty would it be this time? I was delighted by the mysterious sense of anticipation. Anticipation? No, this was conviction. Remove one item of clothing from the top and bottom halves of your body. Whoa.
それはまずいだろ。誰だよこんなの書いたの。
My face reddened in anger. If I didn't yell something out, I wouldn't be able to hide my shaking. Ah, who did write that? God, please give that man a Nobel Prize.
きっとノーベルスケベ賞ですわね。
Not good, not good. What was I thinking? What I was thinking about was written on my face.
みーちゃん。
Reina begged to be able to teary eyes, but everyone knew Mion's answer already.
はいはい、甘えない甘えない。負けたら潔く。
わかりました、ご主人様。脱ぎます。
What? I looked around thinking someone else would probably stop her. Of course, I wasn't exactly trying to stop her either. Then I heard the rustling of clothing. The sound of her skirt hitting the ground sent my heart racing.
これでよろしいでしょうか。ご主人様。
I looked away like a gentleman. But these club activities, you need to be ruthless after all.
なんだ。
ケイチさん、何を期待してますの？下に体操服着てなかったらさすがに脱げませんわ。
Satoko poked fun at me, but right now I can't hear it.
ケイちゃんもやるね。こっちの方向で攻めてくるとはおじさん。よ。
違う。これは俺が書いたんじゃない。
ご主人様が書いたんじゃないんですか？
Her squirming around in her PE clothes made it impossible for me not to feel anything. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. Mion probably wrote that one and planned to go after me as I panicked. Can't fall for a trap after knowing it's a trap. Clear your head. Calm down and assess the situation. I was determined to think my way out of this. And the answer was quite simple.
俺は
I then became a god. I, who had already entered the domain of godhood, what would dare stand in my way? It was like they were pulled to me magnetically. I was picking up aces and twos like nobody's business.
なんでこんなにカード運が悪いんでございます？
サトコの負けだな。引くぞ。妹口調で喋る。
はい、お兄ちゃん。
So that makes 4. That means there's one last penalty in the bag, right? And whatever it is, it's gotta be like the worst one of them, and that's when Keiichi loses. Right? Yes. Pleasure making this brat disgrace herself.
またおじさんの負けじゃん。
ミオンの負けだな。引くぞ。女子スクール水着に着替える。
No!
ケイちゃんに引かせたかった。
Yes! Mion's despair was like sweet honey.
ご主人様。
How many penalties did y'all write?
ちゃいました。
Now hold up. Because there's 5 of y'all. Mion did 1, Reina did 2, Satoko did 1, and then Mion did another one. How many did y'all write?
レナの負けだ。引くぞ。
I'll draw it for
1
you.
位に膝枕。
この格好でですか、ご主人様。
Yeah! She's not wearing a skirt, so it's her bare legs.
お兄ちゃん、強すぎですの。
サトコの負けだな。引くぞ。1位にご奉仕。
This seems like a massive setup. I don't know what the hell, how this is gonna end, but this seems like a massive setup.
肩でも揉んでもらおっかな。
はい、お兄ちゃん。
ほら、もっと冷たてんじゃねえぞ。
I had transformed into an evil dictator and couldn't be doing any better. Felt like I couldn't control how the cards played out with my mind, and even decide what suits would appear just by willing it. By the time I realized it, I had already assembled a harem. I was laughing haughtily as I rested my head on Reina, who was now a bloomer-clad maid. Satoko was wearing a collar and had taken on little sister properties. Mion was fanning me while wearing a school swimsuit. Mm-hmm. But the only one who isn't losing is Rika. I began to think, why does man have no end to his desires? How could I wish for more than this palace of dreams?
どうしましたですか？
どうして人の欲望には限りがないのか。
That was it.
憂いていたのさ。
Rika-chan hadn't been in first, but she continued to escape being in
ケイ
last.
イチは欲張りさんですよ。春を知るとも言いますです。
十分理解してなんて言うのかな。もう死んでもいいって感じ。
ご主人様、あんまりゴロゴロしないで。死んでもいいですね。叶えて差し上げますです
Yeah, I
よ。
fucking knew she was gonna say something like that. We can make that happen. Rika-chan said it in her usual calm manner with a cheery tone. This is undoubtedly a declaration of war.
いいぞ、リカちゃん。やっちゃえ。このドスケベ大魔王をやっつけるでございます。僕では勝てないかもしれませんですが、やっつけますですよ。
Such stoicism from this little girl who was always hidden away in Satoko's shadow. It'd probably be rude not to meet her head on. I shall face you myself, little one. I saw Mion swap a few cards with Rika-chan in the middle of the game, but pretended I didn't see it. Do you believe you can beat Keiichi-sama with just that?
2です。エース、エース、8、8、8、8。革命しますです。
Everybody looked over at me. I was still brimming with confidence. The 4 of them have allied against me. That's it? You're making me laugh.
ありだったよ。革命返しだ。
そんなバカなことがあるわけ。
Satoko let out a shriek. You simpletons. Using up all of her cards before calling the reversal left Rika-chan with no good cards. She was defeated soon after.
僕の負けです。
ついに我が軍門に下ったり。さあ1枚引くぞ。おー
Wear cat ears, a bell collar, and a tail. Even the penalties were as I wished. Rika-chan hung her head and equipped the 3 holy artifacts. It's questionable as to why such things were in Mion's locker, but since I had no objections, I didn't ask. Oh, this was so... Oh, it felt like I had become Reina. This was definitely cute.
かわいいよね。ねえ。はあ、お持ち帰り。
That wasn't me talking. That was the actual Reina.
Me.
Ha! Me. As Rika-chan mimicked a cat, teary-eyed, rings of smoke escaped from Reina's ears with an audible poof.
リカちゃん、お持ち帰り、お持ち帰り。ちょっとだけだよ。変なことはしないんだよ。しないんだよ。
そうか、その手が残ってたか。
Mion gasped and drooped her fist into her open palm.
レナがどうしてもって言うなら、僕はお持ち帰り。レナさんにケイチさんが倒せたらですわ。
They thought that the Reina in cute mode would be able to defeat me. And honestly, they're onto something. They're totally onto something. Once Reina's locked in, ooh. Would it be that easy? Opposing me was the same as opposing God. I'd teach them their place.
証拠罪だ。レナなど返り討ちに。
For a moment, I didn't know what was going on. The 52 cards danced and flowed freely between Reina's hands like the machinations of a master magician. In the middle of those flowing cards was Reina's ecstatic expression, her head bobbing around.
やろ、ケイチ君。早く早く。
My whole body knew it already. I was going to lose. Yep, and what's the final penalty?
出ないのケイちゃん。ならこれであっかり。
Everyone cheered. I was spent.
悔いはないさ。神様、短い夢をサンキューな。
さあ、引くでございますよ。ケイチさんの罰ゲーム、これですわ。
Everybody peeked at it in unison, gazes flicking between the text and my face.
今日一日はしゃがせてもらったからな。何でもやるぜ。内容は何だ。
全部。
は？
Ha 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 ha! All. Every penalty up until now.
なんだそり
ケイチさん、言葉遣いが弟属性。
ゃ。
うわー、これは病みつきになるでございます。あと肩も揉んでもらいますわよ。ケイチ君、膝枕はいいからレナにもね。
はい、ご主人様。
ケイチ君、それすごくかわいい。
ああ、もうお許しください、ご主人様。
Reina passed out with a squeal, blood spewing from her nose like a fountain. My dignity was being trampled more than a communal doormat.
次はおじさんだね。まずはのんびりとうちわで仰いでもらおうかな。あ、そうか、これも着ないとダメだよね。スクール水着。
それ女子用だろ。俺は男子用でいいんじゃないのか。
ここにちゃんと女子スクール水着に着替えると明記してございますわ。
Satoko was like a loan shark. Actually, me trying to escape reality as fast as humanly possible was pretty adorable if I do say so myself.
誰のスクール水着を着る。嫌だろ。俺なんかに着られたら。
あ、おじさんそういうのは全然気にしないから。いいじゃん、役得でさ。私スタイルすっごく悪いからケイちゃんでも着れないことないと思うよ。
The executioners surrounded me, wagging their fingers. Also, you have yet to go pet the principal. Don't forget, that was the first punishment of them all. My first thought, it's tight around the waist. Second thought, chest area was pretty loose. Third thought, the crotch area was... Oh.
ケイチ君、かわいいかわいい。
Yeah, so now that he's in a girl swimsuit, he should have a collar on, he should have the cat ears and tails on. He's talking like both a little brother and a maid. And so in this whole getup now, he's gotta go pet that principal.
あと とこれに猫耳と首輪と
Yep.
尻尾をつけて完成しますです。
ケイちゃん鏡見る？いやマジすごいって。多分見といた方がいい。
The stern, scientific, calculating nature mixed in with her fascination made Mion very scary.
遠慮します、ご主人様。
Yup. Yup.
これで出来上がりですわね。このままの格好で下校するってのもあればよかったですのに。
じゃあもういいかい？着替えてさ。
While I was saying that, Mio placed her hands on my shoulders and Rika-chan slipped up behind me without a sound. Yep, that is not all, actually.
まだです、ケイチ。
One more thing.
一番最初にやった罰ゲームが残ってますです。
この格好でか？
Rika-chan patted my head without saying a word.
うっす。
うん。入りたまえ。
I stepped forwards to the principal's office, my bell collar jingled adorably. The principal froze solid with a smile on his face as he saw me. I couldn't blame him. In this sacred place of study, specifically in his office. Though I said excuse me as I entered, the sight of a person entering with a school swimsuit, cat ears, a collar, and a tail, and for it to be a young male student. Without a doubt, any normal person's psyche would have stopped cold. But this could be explained. We'll call it uncanny valley camouflage, if you will. When humans see others, they can only begin to act after confirming this is human. Meaning that if he could not comprehend what was in front of him, then in those moments before he could begin to fully process the situation, his mind was completely blank. That was my one and only chance for victory. My penalty. Rubbing the principal's head.
こっちよー！勝負！
A zhishing sound echoed loudly. He went straight for the special move. The principal said one thing to me,
男とは何ぞや。
and in a heartbeat. That tremor resounded throughout the Hinamizawan twilight. Oh, that's great. But once again, as silly and funny as that game was, there's a lesson in there. Something to keep in the back of our minds. Something about someone thinking they're in charge of the situation when in reality everyone's setting them up for a massive failure, right? Because yeah, all the other club members, they had to do like 1 or 2 punishments here along the way. But then everything, they were willing to put up with that because they knew in the end everything would come back to bite Mr. Number 1 right in the ass. There's something to keep in mind about that. Reina was given permission to caress Rika-chan's head as much as she wanted, so they headed home together, very pleased. Once again, today, it was just Mion and I going home.
いやー白熱したね。ケイちゃんがあんなに大貧民が強いとは思わなかった。
いや、俺自身が一番驚いてるよ。
If I was playing with guys, I wouldn't have been that strong.
しかし、ひってあんな姿で担架で運ばれた日にゃ、松代までの恥だ。
でもいいじゃん。7台は自慢できるくらいいい目も見たんだし。
Something to boast about. Well, when she says it like that, we both smiled at each other.
おやまた会ったね、ケイチ君。
It's Tamataki-san. Felt like I'd been running into him quite often.
どうも。いい写真は撮れてますか？
ま、そこそこにね。で、
Tamataki-san suddenly leaned over and whispered into my ear.
しかし、今日はこの間とは違う彼女かい？
そういうんじゃな。
とぼけないとぼけない。若いうちは経験が大事なんだからな。
Because Tomitaki-san let out such a crude laugh, Mio knew what we were talking about without even hearing his whispering.
富武のおじさまだってなかなか隅に置けないって噂ですけど。
いや、僕はそんなつもりで。
はいはい。お仕事頑張って。 いい写真いっぱい撮ってくださいな。バイバイ。
Bye bye. Mio seemed to really want to get rid of this lout quickly. From the way she spoke, it seems as if Mio knew Tomitaki-san quite well.
おじさまは今年は綿流しまで滞在ですかな。
うん、そのつもりだよ。お祭りを一通り撮影したらまた東京に帰るよ。
カメラマンってやつは早くでっかい賞を取って今期逃してまで写真撮影に熱中してるんだから。
そんなことはないと思うな。男は味噌汁から味が出るんだよ。
Unique flavor.
味噌から味が出てどうすんですか、バッチーナ。
うんあおっと、そろそろ宿に戻らないと暗くなっちゃうな。
Tomitaki-san began to take his leave with a dry laugh. Did look like he was outmatched by Mion.
じゃあお二人ともお祭りでまた会おうね。
After waving a hand cheerfully, Tomitaki-san disappeared amidst the cries of the Higurashi.
あんな調子で本当に有名になれんのかね。個展開いたら私の写真展示してもらう約束になってんだけど、当分実現しそうにないかね。
ミオンは富武さんのことを知ってるんだ。
うん、知り合いっていうかほら、ここじゃよそ者はすぐ分かっちゃうからね。
昨日今日会ったばかりという感じじゃなかったな。
富武さんね、結構ちょくちょくひなみ沢に来るんだよ。年に 2,3 回くらいかな。季節の風景や野鳥を撮影してるんだってさ。大した写真じゃないんだろうけどね。
The image Mion painted of Tomitaki-san was fairly unique. The Tomitaki-san I knew was more mysterious. The words flowed naturally from my mouth.
富武さんって本当に野鳥撮影で来てるのかな。
Mion stared blankly at me as if to ask, why do you say that?
なんかこう撮影以外の目的で来てるようなさ。
Yeah, that much seemed kind of obvious.
そんな気がしないか。
Like about that incident. The dismemberment.
へえ、やっぱりそう思ったとしたらいい感してるよ、ケイちゃん。
She agreed with what I thought, but was quite chipper in how she said it.
知ってるのか、ミオン。
もうね他のみんなはひょっとすると気づいてないかもしれないけど、このおじさんの目はごまかせないしね。
Mion was posturing pretentiously, but I had easily come to a very different conclusion from what she was imagining. Felt like all apprehensions I had about Tomitaki-san disappeared, lifting a burden off my shoulders. I was finally able to appreciate how clear the evening sky over Hinamizawa was. I exhaled everything in my lungs and inhaled just as much. It smelled like dusk.
どうしたの、ケイちゃん。
日暮の声ってさ、こんなにも気持ちいいものだったんだなって。
ケイちゃん、何を今さら。
We both continued to giggle, not knowing
レ
why.
ナは今頃どうしてるかな。リカちゃんを思う存分可愛がれたのかな。
今頃は夕食を振る舞うから遊びにおいでって誘ってる真っ最中だよ。
うまく持ち帰れるといいな。
どうだろうね。リカちゃんってあれでなかなかうまいから。
ああ、それは同感。頭を撫でる罰ゲーム。あれ、きっとリカちゃんだぜ。
私も同感。
Actually, that does make a lot of sense in hindsight, yeah. The one who's always patting people's
校
heads.
長先生の頭を撫でられるのはリカちゃんだけ
Yeah,
だし。
exactly. Actually, yeah, no. That makes a lot of sense. It's a penalty for anyone else who draws it, but if she drew it, she'd be able to get away with it just fine. Clever, clever. Just pointless chit-chat. Hot day felt like it was being cooled down by the cries of the Higurashi. Oh, a community notice. Let's see what that's all about. We're greeting the end of the rainy season sooner than in prior years. On this day, when it feels like summer will soon arrive, I'm pleased that everyone is in good health. The season for the Watanagashi is finally upon us. I believe the assistance of the town council will make this a wonderful festival. I also wish to ask for the assistance of everyone in regards to a few things. 1. Collecting bazaar goods. Villagers are welcome to put their wares on show at the well-received Hinamizawa Grand Bazaar exhibition. Anything is welcome, from unconsumed gifts to used clothing. No raw goods, please. Management, Makino. I realized at the end that the rest was a telephone number. Makino. Number 2, recruiting Lil Festival drum dancers. The renowned Lil Festival drum dancers group, known for its careful choreography, the Shofu Society, is taking last-minute participants. We're looking for any Shobo elementary and middle schoolers. Management, Kimiyoshi. Taking donations. We're accepting donations in multiples of 1,000 yen. For every 1,000 yen donation, you'll be awarded a refreshment stand ticket. Management, Sonozaki. We are always taking suggestions for ways to improve the festival. If you have an interesting idea, call Kimiyoshi at... There is a 200 yen refreshment stand ticket attached below the cut line. Okay. Continue. A few days had passed since the incident. During that time, either Mion was busy or Riki-chan had to help with the festival preparations, so we couldn't get everybody together for club activities. Even though I thought I would never want to participate again after the years it shaved off my life each time, not having it only made my heart grow fonder. I really am not honest with myself. Today we finally had our club activities again. These weren't the same old club activities. It was called the Cotton Drifting 5 Demon Firefight, and it was one of the biggest events in the club.
Keiichi, この浴衣、まだ着れるかしら。ちょっと袖を通してみてくれる？
Mom pulled out an old dusty yukata.
いいよ浴衣なんて恥ずかしいから普段着で行くよ。
でもお祭りなんだから着て行きなさいな。
レナとかは普段着でいいって言ってたぜ。浴衣なんか着てったらかえって恥さらしだよ。
Put on the same old vest as usual.
祭りにはレナたちと行くからさ、俺のことは放っておいて大丈夫。
そう？じゃあ母さんは父さんが起きたら2人で行くわね。
Dad let out a loud snore from the sofa.
あの調子じゃ夕べも徹夜かな。
急ぎの原稿をようやく発送したとこなの。ひょっとすると起きないかもね。
Seems my dad writes for art magazines sometimes too. I've never read it though. Wonder if my dad is a really famous artist. As his son, it's a bit strange for me to say, but I can't imagine he's selling all that well. But he's able to feed a family of 3, and my life isn't exactly full of hardships. Not yet, anyway. Maybe he's actually a master painter, and I just never knew it. Nope. Uh-oh, it was already time. I didn't want them coming here, so I was planning on leaving early and waiting outside.
あらあらレナちゃん、いつもうちのケイイチがお世話になってまして。
おばさま、こちらこそお世話になって。
Why are you blushing just from meeting my mom?
そこで真っ赤になるな。実に気まずい。行くぞレナ。
Since Rena would continue to space out if I left her here, I grabbed her hand and dragged her out.
レナちゃん、ケイイチをよろしくね。
はいおばさま、ケイイチ君はレナが命に変えましても。
That's quite a statement. Why don't you do it right now? She waved back even as I was dragging her away.
はいケイちゃん。
Still not gonna address why you have a gun? Okay.
今日はお腹すかしてる？露店で済ますんだからね。
部活が露天勝負と分かってて腹を無駄に膨らますと思ったかよ。
そうでなくっちゃ。
さとことリカちゃんはもう神社に行ってるのか？
リカちゃんはお祭りの実行委員さんだもん。さとこちゃんもきっと一緒だよ。
そっか。よっしゃ、今日は目いっぱい騒ぐぞ。
We're already in high spirits with just the 3 of us hit there. Max's game. Is that a Gundam? It has GU and then it's conveniently cut off. Ringo. Okay, those are apples. There was a... Is it takoyaki? That is a takoyaki stand. How's that? Yeah, I don't know what that one says. Is that a bunny? What are they selling where the bunny's the mascot? Castera? Huh. Throngs of people were crammed between rows of market stalls lined with colorful paper lanterns. Despite that, it was actually quite enjoyable.
すげえ人だな。ひなみ沢ってこんなに人がいたんだ。
綿流しのお祭りはみんな来るよ。多分ひなみ沢の人の半分くらいは来てるんじゃないかな。
それだけじゃないよ。近隣の町の町会や子供会も招待してる。
そうだよな。俺たちの学校あれしか生徒いないのに、今日は子供の姿が。
お祭りの賑やかさはやっぱり子供の賑やかさだからね。
It's true. I agree.
どうもこんばんは。
These two knew everybody we came across. Of course, I greeted them as well, but I still wasn't familiar with everybody yet.
あら、レナちゃん。この間はお惣菜をありがとうね。うちの子も美味しいって喜んでたわ。
いえいえ。気に入ってもらえて嬉しいです。和正くんにもよろしくお伝えくださいね。
よう、園崎のお嬢ちゃんじゃねえの。今年も屋台担いで来てやったぜ。
おっちゃん、太った？今からそんなお腹じゃ家庭は
Alright,
心筋
you're
梗塞だね。
Sonozaki. I'd honestly totally forgotten what Mion's actual surname was. Wasn't Sonozaki one of the names on the committee then when they did the community notice? I'm pretty sure.
お、この兄ちゃんは嬢ちゃんの後輩かい？
うちの部員だよ。期待のニューフェイス。侮ると一晩で屋台潰されるよ。
嬢ちゃんのお墨付きかい。そりゃお手柔らかに頼むぜ。
Ika. Squid. Fuck, that one's backwards. It's hard to actually... I'm trying to read this stall on the left, see if I can make out the katakana there. Can't really, I mean, kinda. It's like, nah. They got ketchup and mustard. Looks like, oh, is that corn dogs? Looks like corn dogs. Shit, I didn't actually read that. I was too busy looking at the stalls. As you can imagine, Mion was chatting away with the old guys running the stalls.
おじさんたちにすごく人気あるの。
レナも人気あると思うけどな。可愛いし。
That was, of course, so long as her little condition didn't flare up. But as long as she's blushing quietly, she's pretty cute.
あ、レナが？誰に人気あるのかな？あるのかな？
誰かにだよ。
I evaded giving her a straight answer by roughly tussling her hair.
露天商は町からわざわざ来てくれるんだよ。やっぱりこういうのがないとお祭りは盛り上がらないよね。
で、それを俺たちは荒らして回るわけ。どんな勝負にせよ、俺は負けないぜ。
そうだね。頑張ろう。ああ、遅いですわ皆様。レディーを待たせるとはケイチさんもなってないでございますわ。
おお、そりゃすまんな。で、その待たせた
That was exactly what I was about to say. So where's the lady I've kept waiting?
不安ですって。
Alright, Satoko was in top form as well. Seems she was all excited about being able to get everybody in the club together for the first time in a while.
リカちゃん、かわいい。
Reina let out an elated sigh. It seemed that the real lady had made her appearance.
こんばんはですよ、みんな。ケイイチもこんばんはです。
What? I wasn't included in the everyone? Good evening, everyone. And Keiichi, too. Wow, ouch. The fuck?
いいねいいね、今年も決まってるじゃん。
かわいいかわいい。お持ち帰り。
Rika-chan was wearing a Shrine Maiden outfit. Yep. Reina's little outburst was completely understandable.
リカちゃんの服装は本格派だな。これって本物の巫女さんの服か？
うちのバッチャのお手製。結構本格派でしょ。
リカちゃんはお祭りの最後に大切なお仕事があるからその衣装なの。
I see. Rika-chan was on the executive committee because she performed all the Shrine Maiden rituals for the festival.
お仕事はお祭りの最後のところだけなのです。まだまだゆっくり遊べますですよ。ってことはここで時間を無駄にできないということで参りましょう。
よっしゃー。
Felt good to wander around the festival with just the 5 of us. Mion called everyone over to a stand that caught her attention and proposed a rather odd competition.
たこ焼き早食い勝負。各自購入の上。よーい、ドン。
The standard in vendor stalls, the takoyaki stand. What was especially standard for these kinds of events was the fact that they were simply balls of dough, takoyaki in name only.
お水お水。ああ、そんな熱々たこ焼き丸飲みなんて
作り置きの冷めたやつを購入するのがコツかな。
実に美味しくないですよ。
The stall next to it was a shaved ice stand. It was still a bit too early in the season for that, but right then it didn't matter.
今度はかき氷に完食早食い勝負。レディーゴー。
かき氷の早食いなんてもう体温で少しでも溶かせば冷たいですの。
甘いね。おじさんはシロップ大盛りで頼んだのさ。混ぜればすぐに溶ける。
Those stooges were too late. But when they chose to tackle it head on, it was their downfall.
完食だ。
ケイちゃんが？早すぎる。
まさかケイチくん後ろの金魚すくいのお水を入れたん？実に美味しくないですよ。
Next to that was another old favorite, a cotton candy stand. Where's the cotton candy stand? I didn't see cotton candy.
次はこちらにしませんこと？もちろん早食いですわ。
Cotton candy seems like it'd be mad easy. What's the skill there? That shit just dissolves.
ねえねえ、わたあめの早食いなんてどうやるんだろう。
On Satoko's mark, me on Satoko and I all compressed the cotton candy with our bare hands. Time it took to stick the whole thing in our mouths? 3 seconds. Yeah.
サトコはともかく、ケイちゃんも気づいてたとはね。
俺をいつまでも新入部員扱いしないことだぜ。
実に美味しくないですよ。
Rika-chan had also crushed it between her hands and stuck it into her mouth.
こんなわたあめの食べ方、きっと日本中でもここだけだよ。
I think only Reina's cotton candy was happy with how it was eaten. But it felt like we'd end up doing stuff like eat noodles through the nose contest or human water pump at the goldfish scoop at the rate things were going.
それでもおじさんは勝つけどね。
白磁気勝負ではミオさんにはかないません。
ああ、まったく。
何あんたたち、次は焼きそばにブルーハワイかけて食べる勝負にしたいわけ？
Both Satoko and I shook our heads in unison.
今度はちょっと食べ物から離れたゲームにしないかな。しないかな。
Reina's proposal was a godsend. It was about time we played a different kind of game. It also seemed like neither Reina nor Rika-chan were any good at speed eating or gorging themselves.
じゃあレナ、次のゲームをあんたに任せるよ。何でもいい。
じゃあね、レナは審判だよ。このお祭り会場でかいいものを探してくるの。制限時間は1分。上等ですわ。
Man, that's cheating for Rika. She could just show up and be like, here I am.
レナの好みは分かってますもの。
よし、多分あれなら勝てる。
よーい、ダン。あれ、ケイチ君とリカちゃんはなんでスタートしないんだろう。しないんだろう。
Mion and Satoko dashed off madly, but Rika-chan and I calmly stayed right where we are.
ひょっとしてもう見つけてあるの？かわいいの。もう見つけてありますです。ケイチもですね。
ああ。
なんだろう楽しみ。
Both Rika-chan and I stood motionless for those few moments before Mion and Satoko returned.
こういう形で直接対決するのは初めて
します。
リカちゃん、あれで勝つつもりか？
僕も部員です。勝つためなら快速第3条ですよ。
Rika-chan sneered to the best of her ability. You're on. Both Mion and Satoko came back, each with their own plan of attack stuffed in their arms.
じゃあ順番にね。1番は部長さんのみーちゃん。
悪いけどいくさんはこれだ。
Where did she get those? They were old diamond-shaped tin signs.
カレーに蚊取り線香、昔懐かしのブリキ看板だ。どう？
That's very understated. A little too understated, Mion. I used to see those stuck up on barbed wire fences. They were more nostalgic than cute. Can you explain what part of that is cute? But there were puffs of smoke noisily shooting out of Reina's ears and nose, almost like a steam train. I didn't get it.
次は私が行く。これでございます。
It was the hand-drawn poster from the Ladies' Society roasted corn stall. It was a really bad sketch done by a housewife. The anthropomorphic roasted corn drawn without any sort of real plan. Its very existence invited a sense of sorrow to the viewer. Bleep. That was the sound of blood jetting out of Reina's nose. It seemed to have been rated higher than Mion's. I really didn't get it. It feels like your artistic sense is a little avant-garde by about 5 eons.
所詮は量産看板。手書きには勝てませんわ。
I couldn't even begin to follow the way those guys were thinking.
では次は僕が行きますですよ。
次はリカちゃんか。小道具もなしにどんな手を使うやら。
Did you and Satoko both forget? If Rika-chan felt like it, she could simply... After moving back about 10 yards, she began waddling up to Reina. Seeing that, both Mion and Satoko gasped. Yeah. Too late. Rika-chan tripped over nothing and lay motionless after falling down. Reina hurried over to her.
リカちゃん大丈夫かな？大丈夫かな？
Rika-chan had a lump on her forehead and tears welled up in her eyes. Only her fingers peeked out from her sleeves. This was the vital part. The palms of her hands were covered by her sleeves. She made just a single sound.
Me.
Me.
かわいい。お持ち帰り。忘れてましたですの。
You fools.
一番身近な手を忘れてましたわ。
Reina's face went completely red, her head bobbing back and forth with excitement. She embraced Rika-chan and began rubbing her cheek against her.
さすがだぜ。どこまで取ってもちびっこ、みこ、半涙、みー、完璧だ。
Me.
ただの苔を萌えにまで昇華した。
Pure
ま
moe.
さに芸術と呼ぶにふさわしい。
ケイちゃんの方がわかんねえセンスしてるよ。
It was absolute cinema, you wouldn't understand, Mion. I'll just pretend the sharp sting of those words cutting through me like a razor was a figment of my imagination. Rika-chan turned her gaze to me with a daunting smile as she was caressed by Reina, who was in full cute mode.
さあケイイチ、僕に勝てますですか？
That cold smile is frightening, Rika-chan. It must just be my imagination, but I see a demon inside her sometimes.
ケイちゃんにも何か秘策があってのことだ。何を見せてくれるのかな。
私としましてもケイイチさんのお手並み拝見でございますわ。ひょっとしてケイイチも芸をしますですね。
I basked in their pointed stares. I pulled Reina, who gave no sign of canceling out of cute mode, away from Rika-chan.
今から俺がもっとかわいいのを見。
もっとかわいいの？
だがここはちょっとギャラ。あっちの影へ行こ
う。Reina looked very surprised as I pulled her behind the shrine.
ケイイチさんの企みが見えないでございますわ。
ケイちゃんに限って。いや、まさか。
By any means necessary.
ファイト、王です。
After a bit, I returned. And a bit after that, so did Reina, dragging her feet.
まさかケイちゃんのやつ、ねんねのレナに変なことしたんじゃ。
Mion and Satoko passed by me, heading straight to Reina.
変なことって一体何でございますの？
For a moment, Reina was too dazed to realize someone was talking to her.
なんだ、みーちゃんか。
大丈夫？ケイちゃんに変なことされない？
レナかなりの重傷ですわ。ケイチさんは一体何を見せましたの？とっても可愛かったよ。
かわいい？レナ、あんた何を見せられたの？
Reina let out a really long howl. Her eyes sparkled as she spoke.
可愛かったよ。ケイチ君のオットセイ。
Furry little seal? In the blink of an eye, Mion and Satoko's elbows smashed into my face.
この大勢重複して差し上げ。
違う誤解だ。
A dark, billowing aura flowed from Mion and Satoko. It was no good. They're gonna kill me.
みーちゃん、なんだかはケイチ君はオットセイさんのキーホルダーですよ。
Mika-chan stuck her hand into my pocket and pulled out my keychain.
昔夏休みの宿題で作ったと言ってますです。恥ずかしいのでめったに人に見せないとも言ってますですよ。ちっちゃくて可愛く精一杯頑張ったって感じがとっても素敵だったよ。
なんだ、てっきりおじさんはケイちゃんの。あははは。
Come on, no self-respecting man would show that off in a cute contest. Even, well, I mean, if he knew it was gonna win, maybe. Just knowing how this club operates, right? But no self-respecting man is gonna be like, I got something cute for you.
さすがミオさんですわ。間違える方向もワイルドですこと。
They slung insults at each other and looked like they were ready to tear into each other any second. I beg of you. If I'm in the clear, would you mind getting off of me? We were interrupted by the flash of a camera. What are you up to, Tomitake?
やあみんな、相変わらず元気そうだね。
It was Tomitake-san. As I lay crumpled on the ground, Mion and Satoko continued to bicker above me. Mika-chan was patting me on the head, and Reina was still in cute mode. It was probably quite a lively scene.
こんばんはではございますが、レディーに断りもなくお写真を撮るのはエチケット違反でございますことよ。
そうだな。少なくともサトコの許可は必要ない。
Satoko dug her heel into me.
こんばんは。明日帰られちゃうんですよね。素敵な写真はいっぱい撮れましたか？
おかげさまでね、いい絵がたくさん撮れたよ。
富武のおじさまに会えるのも今晩限りなのね。お名残惜しいですわ。いい加減とっととメジャーデビューしてくださいよね。
相変わらず口が悪いな。その毒舌もまた半年聞けないかと思うと残念だよ。
せいぜい今夜を楽しんでらしてください。明日の夜にはもう東京なんですからね。
そうだね。星が見える夜空なんまた半年お預けだもんね。
Tomitake-san looked up at the night sky cheerfully. That moment, even though he was smiling, I sensed a bit of sadness.
富武さん、いっそ住めばいいじゃないですか。南沢。
Tomitake-san was
確
speechless.
かに不便なとこです。店もないし、娯楽もないし、何もないかもしれないけど。
Everyone knew what I was trying to say. Tomitake-san was also well aware. So Reina, Mion, Satoko, and Rika-chan. None of them butted in.
俺はまだここに引っ越してきて一月も経たないからよくわからないけど。
Normally I'm a really talkative guy, but in situations like this I'm at a loss for words. Even though all this was happening in such a boisterous setting. Felt like all the background noise was fading into the distance.
ここにはきっと。
Tomitake-san rested his hand on me gently, silencing me.
ありがとな。ケイイチ君、ミオンちゃんにレナ、サトコちゃんにリカちゃん。
Tomitake-san's smile was so slight it looked as if it was going to crumble at any minute, but it was warm.
僕もここに住めたらきっと楽しいだろうなって思うよ。
Those might have been cruel words coming from a kid who didn't need to worry about working to feed himself. A hand touched my back. It was Reina.
ケイイチ君、大人をいじめちゃかわいそうだよ。
The background clamor of the festival returned.
またしばらくのお別れなんですからね。今夜は富武さんにもたくさん楽しんでもらわなくっちゃ。
When Reina smiled, the mood instantly got brighter.
そうだね。ぜひそうさせてもらうよ。
あ、ねえねえみーちゃん、どうだろう。富武さんを部活に入部させてあげるのは。
That's a great idea, is it? Or so I thought, but Mion had a snobbish look on her face.
入部条件の一つにひなみ沢在住ってのがあるんだけどね。
そんなみーちゃん、今日くらい意地悪しなくても。
コツコツ毎年来てるからね。名誉市民と認定してあげよう。
やったー。さてさて、こんな旬を過ぎたご老体にこの私の相手に
Well
務まれ
past
て
his
ございましょう
prime.
かしら。老快な大人の知恵を見せてもらいましょうです。
へへ、俺たちの若さについてこられるかな。
Tomitake-san stepped back slightly at our audacious grins.
部長園崎美音の名において名誉市民富武氏の我が部への入部を許可する。
The words were quickly drowned out by cheers.
なんだいその部活ってのは。
我が部はだな、複雑化する社会に対応するため活動ごとに提案されるあるいは逆境からいかにして。
レナは弱いからいじめないでほしいな。仲良くやろうね。子供のごっこ遊びと侮るつもりなら好都合でございます。
身ぐるみ剥いで地獄の底に叩き落としてやるぜ。
つまりみんなでゲームして遊ぶ部活です。
Of course, Rika-chan was the only one to give an answer that made sense.
よーし、望むところだよ。その挑戦を受けて立とうじゃないか。お手柔らかに頼むよ、先輩方。
Tomitake-san got riled up and did a victory pose like he was 10 years younger. That's perfect. We continued walking through the festival with Mion in the front. Now we look like a family of 6. It had some intensity to it.
ルールはいつも通り。ビリにはもちろんお約束の罰ゲーム。
Tomitake-san was a bit surprised, but to us it was just the same as always. Regardless of how terrible a penalty it was,
負けなきゃいいんだからね。
Reina was also brimming with determination. She didn't have any intention of losing.
そうだな。
I tousled Reina's hair to lighten the mood. She giggled to hide her embarrassment.
なるほど。これが同心ってやつなんだな。
Tomitake-san whispered that to nobody in particular. At that moment, we heard an old man call out in a strong voice. Looking over, I realized it was the man Mion had greeted right before the festival.
来たかい、園崎の嬢ちゃん。今年は大人数みたいじゃねえの。
あんたの店根こそぎかっさらいに来たよ。
His stall was a shooting gallery. It was the usual setup where you had to knock down the prize you wanted with a court gun.
ルールは簡単。
Well, honestly, I think we're at a disadvantage here. Like, did you see the dog tags that Tomitake-san's got? Like,
3発撃って得られた景品のデカさで勝負しよう。
everybody shouted their agreement. There was no need to consider how to win, since the condition for victory was simply size. The biggest prize at the stall, it went without question. It was that one, wasn't it? I'm looking at that big F1 car in the back there. It just says, Yaha! What teddy bear? That one in the middle? How is that the largest? Do you not see that massive box above it? Reina was gazing longingly at the large stuffed animal. It was intentionally placed on an unsteady platform, so it was possible to get it if you hit the right spot.
と一瞬思わせる絶妙な配置が見事だ。
さすがケイティ一発でカンパすると思いましたわ。
ここは無難にキャラメルや人形を狙うのが定石のようだね。
The intent analysis had already begun. In this club, you'll get eaten alive if you don't come prepared. Everything hinges on what plan you can come up with before the main event. At some point, a large crowd had gathered around us making a big fuss. There was this much of a following for our club's infamous event.
クマさんを落とせれば
3発しかないんだぜ。それを確かめるために使うには重いな。
へいへい、他のお客さんも待ってるんだ。最初のチャレンジャーは誰からだ？
先に挑戦した方が楽な景品を狙えて有利かもしれないけど、鉄砲の癖が見えないうちの挑戦は危険だね。
Tomitake-san's take on the situation was pretty good. He gets what our club is about.
じゃあさ、公平にじゃんけんで決めるのはどうかな？
Rock, paper, scissors between 6 people is kind of wild.
結局それしかない。じゃんけん。
After a couple of matches, it ended up with Mion being first.
一番は避けたかったんだけど、ま、ハンデってことにしとくかな。おっちゃん、10。
そらよ。
When the shooting range guy handed her a rifle, Mion looked over it intently. She didn't forget to check the cork bullet
オ
either.
ッケー。この銃はおろしたてだね。癖はなし。悪くない。
Mion raised the gun in one swift motion. It was completely different from her careful inspection. She was shooting from the hip. Fire. Reload. Fire. Reload. Fire. Flop. Flop, flop. 3 candy boxes fell, one after the other. A big haul. The crowd paused in a moment of awe, then erupted in cheers.
やるでございますわ。
Tomitake-san was at a loss for words after seeing such shooting prowess.
すごいよみーちゃん。3つ。
Her accuracy was incredible. Her choice of targets wasn't bad either. The 3 Mion had gone after were fairly large and pretty easy to knock over. They were all targets with very high return on investment.
2番手は誰？さとこ？気をつけて。弾が軽い。
Next was Satoko. The rifle looked a bit big for her little body, but it didn't seem like she had any problem with the weight.
やはりここは大物狙いで行かせてもらいますわ。
She proclaimed that she was going after the teddy bear. Damn, Satoko, such a bold move.
クマさんを落とせばその時点でさとこちゃんのトップは確定するね。さとこちゃん頑張れ。
Satoko was the opposite of Mion. She aimed at the target carefully and squeezed the trigger.
弾が軽いですわ。
First 2 bullets struck the bear in the torso, but only shifted a bit. You need to aim higher towards the head or it won't work. Satoko's 3rd bullet wasn't aimed at the bear, but the candy box below its arm.
残念でございますけれど、私にクマは2が勝ちすぎているみたいですわね。
She went boldly after the big catch, but since she switched over to less impressive prey at the last second, the crowd only gave a strained laugh. Were they laughing because she lacked the courage? These fools know nothing.
さとこ、いい仕事をするじゃん。腕を上げたね。
The palm of Mion's outstretched hand went pump as it tapped down lightly on Satoko. She appeared to be just talking hot air, but this was actually completely calculated. Damn that Satoko. Just to avoid being in last place, she dared to switch over to an easy target. Without shame or honor. Magnificent.
クマはレナさんに譲るでご健闘をお祈りしましたよ。ありがとね、さとこちゃん。クマさんかいいよ。
Reina was up next. She couldn't hit the broadside of a barn as regular Reina, but she said that bear was cute.
レナちゃんはどうだろう。一つくらい当たるといい。
富武さんはちょっとレナを甘く見てますね。
It's Reina, you know. It's Reina Ryugu, you know. If it was to get that teddy bear. Tomitake-san wheeled around to see what all the commotion the spectators were making was about. If it was to get that bear, she'd be able to shoot through a pinhole. The one known as Reina Ryugu could do it.
揺れてるよ。かいよ。
Reina couldn't hide her excitement over the bear's slow rocking. Now Reina couldn't lose.
さすがレナさんで冷静を失えば
強い。
Another big cheer. Reina's bullet hit the bear's forehead again. Not enough. The bear seemed to wobble more than before.
でも無理かもしれませんで。
いやレナちゃんの腕だったらひょっとすると。
While Tomitake was just as excited as the crowd, Riki-chan's analysis was not swayed by emotion. If Reina had 10 more shots, then she could surely knock it over. With just one more, no matter how you looked at it, no go. The crowd let out a dejected groan. She had shot it right in the forehead 3 times. It was a bit late, but they gave her a good round of applause for the attempt. She should be praised for her valor, but she had no trophies to show for it. Then, at that moment, the old man flicked one of the candy boxes with his finger and handed it to Reina.
こいつはジョーちゃんのだぜ。
これレナに？
あんなすげえの見せられて手ぶらで返しちゃ、お天道様に申し訳が立たねえぜ。
There was another shower of applause. Reina turned bright red, and I pulled her back over to us by hand.
頑張ったじゃないかよ。可愛いモードのレナにゃ驚かされるぜ。
はあ、惜しかったよ、クマさん。
It was easy to see that it only needed a little more to be knocked over. Reina had done quite a lot for me. I still need to pay her back for that delicious picnic.
よっしゃ、そんなら俺が。
僕が取ったらプレゼントするよ。
What? Tomitaki-san had stolen the words right out of my mouth. You son of a
お願い
bitch.
ね、富武さん。頑張れ。
Damn you, old man Tomitaki. Stealing the good parts for yourself. A small hand stretched over and fell gently on my head just before I was overcome with frustration. Thanks, Rika.
ケイイチもファイト王ですよ。
Tomitaki-san carefully studied the bear. Setting his sights, he shouldered the rifle while holding the other 2 shots in his hand.
どういうことだ？
富武のおっさんの狙いは。
The time between shots was short. It was meaningless to shoot again once it stopped shaking, so Tomitaki-san was relying on rapid fire to win the battle. It was visibly wobbling much more than it ever had before, but that was all. It still didn't fall over. All of Reina's momentary expectation from watching it sway violently turned into a dejected sigh.
結構いけると思っ
男だとキャラメルはもらえないようでございますわね。
That was it. It meant Tomitaki-san had no spoils of war.
つまり、ケイちゃんとリカちゃんは手堅く楽な。
ビリ回避か。あ、すみませんね。
今度はケイイチ君の番だよ。検討。
I was the 5th shooter. I took the rifle from Tomitaki-san. If I took the ruthless route, as Mion had suggested, then I'd go for something insignificant. Except, when I picked up the rifle, I definitely got a feeling from it. It was burning passion, passed down to me by Tomitaki-san. The regret of not being man enough to fell the bear that Reina wanted. Yes, that's right. If I didn't aim for the bear, then I wouldn't be a man.
約束しちまったからな、レナに。
約束って？
あのクマを撃ち折ってレナにプレゼントするって。
それって。
The crowd went wild when they saw our conversation. That's not it. Fine men of the crowd. If I didn't do this, then Reina might mug the old man running the stall on his way home. No, that's not it. That's not it at all. Why can't I just express my honest feelings?
ケイイチさんも男を見せます。でも実際どうやってクマを落とす気ですの？レナや富武の弾で幾分傾きはしましたですが、難しいと。ケイイチ君。
もっと素早い連射力があれば一撃後。
頑張って、ケイイチ君。
After taking 2 deep breaths, I shouted over to the guy.
もう2丁貸してくれ。
Huh? The crowd murmured amongst themselves.
ケイイチさんは何を企んでいるのでしょう。
Are you going to try to fire 3 rifles at once?
一人じゃ3丁は使えないですのよ。
読めたよ、ケイちゃんも。考えたじゃん。
Mion was able to figure out magnificently.
つまり一番時間がかかってるのがこの
そうだよね。じゃあ先に弾を詰めた鉄砲を3つ並べておけば。
Tomitaki-san went silent, peering at me and the bear through his lens. His photographer's blood predicted a miracle would occur. Then the crowd finally picked up on what I was planning. They let out a great cheer. They chanted my name, Keiichi. Rapid fire's the key. If I miss, all's for naught. After letting out a deep breath, I paused. Relax. Now! That moment felt like time itself had stopped. Felt like I could see the trajectory of the bullets, hit it, and knock it down. First shot at the bear on its head. The second, the third. The bear swayed hard, and then... The cheers began before the stuffed animal even finished falling off the shelf. The guy caught it before it hit the ground and tossed it over to me.
まさか本当に乾杯だぜ。
すごいや。おめでとう、ケイチ君。
ケイチさんも頭を使えるようになりましたわね。少しは見直しましたですな。
俺一人で落としたわけじゃないぜ。みんなで当てて少しずつずらして落
Yeah,
としたんだ。
teamwork.
こいつは俺たち全員の戦果だぜ。
そうそう、全員の力の結晶だね。
Fuck are you talking about, Mion? You didn't put any effort on the bear. You shot down your 3 candy boxes. Like, at least Satoko even put some shots into the bear, alright? You ain't do shit.
ミーは一発も当ててませんです。
Yeah, fuck you. This isn't your trophy. After holding up the teddy bear like it was a championship trophy, I handed it to Reina.
そうだ、こいつは俺から、いや、みんなからだな。いつもうまい弁当ありがとな。
Reina, thinking she was never actually going to get it, was momentarily speechless.
ダメだよ、ケイチ君。だってこれはみんなの。
じゃあ落としたのは俺。だからこれは俺のだからレナにやる。
I pushed the stuffed animal towards her again. This time, she embraced it and accepted
俺が
it.
引っ越してきてからいろいろ面倒を見てくれたよな。すげえ感謝してるんだぜ。ありがとな。
ケイチ君、ありがとう。
Reina dove at me. Mion told me a few days later that Reina kissed me, but I didn't realize it during all the excitement at the time. I remembered what I was trying to say to Tomitaki-san earlier. There really isn't much of anything here. But there are lots of things you can't find anywhere else. Gained a lot from coming to Hinamizawa, especially at that moment. The crowd's cheers echoed on and on. From the altar set up in front of the shrine, the drums sounded with a booming echo. It was the finale of the festival.
じゃあ僕はお先に行くですよ。
おっと、僕も早く行っていいポジションを確保。じゃあみんな、後ほど。
Both Rika-chan and Tomitaki-san gave their farewells and disappeared into the crowd.
二人ともお勤めしっかりでございますよ。ささ参りましょうでございます。
うん。リカちゃんのあで姿を見に行きますかね。行こう。
あ、あれ、レナは？何やってんだよ。
ケイチ君、みーちゃん、助けて。
Since she was carrying such a ridiculously large stuffed animal, she was being carried by the flow of people.
何やってんだ。熊の世話で手一杯なんだな。
じゃあケイちゃんにはレナの世話を私はサトコの世話で忙しいし。
誰がミオンさんの世話になるでございますの。痛い。手引っ張らないでくださいまし。
Before losing sight of Mion, I grabbed the back of Reina's collar.
ケイチ君、そこ違う。掴むとこ違う。
注文のうるさいやつだ。どこならいいんだ。
Yeah, where can I grab? I didn't feel ashamed at all. Reina was ashamed enough for the both of us. I grabbed onto Reina's hand and dashed after Mion and the
置いて
others.
かれる。早く行こうぜ。
I hadn't realized Reina's hand was so delicate. Maybe she needed a bit more exercise and nutrition? That wasn't what I meant. Not at all. My ears burned. I tried to keep calm. I repeated the phrase, "Keep it together, Keiichi Maibara," in my mind, but it didn't look like I'd be able to anytime soon. I really didn't want Reina to see my face right then, so I pushed onwards, dragging her along without looking back even once. There was already a huge group of people gathered at the altar in front of the shrine. The fire at the altar made it as bright as midday, and just as hot. There was a pile of futons warded with sanctified rope in front of the altar. Come to think of it, they did say it was a festival where they did something with the cotton of futons.
ケイチさん、レナさん、こちらでございますのよ。
Satoko waved her hand from the front row.
すまんすまん。
Making our way through the mass of people, we reached the spot they'd saved.
どう？ちょっとはレナ とドキドキできた？
やっぱりてめえそういうつもりだったのか。
Instead of replying, Mion gave us a perverse
レ
grin.
ナはどうだった？ケイちゃんの手って意外に大きいとか思わなかった？
Reina turned bright red, puffs of steam shooting out of her. Heard something slice through the air and turned around to see Mion on the ground with a welt on her face.
ミオン、お前いつ食らった？
ハウのハとウの間くらいだったかな。
レナ、照れ隠しに友達を殴るのは良くないぞ。
レナ殴ってないよ。知らないもん。
Thump. The thunderous beat of the drum echoed, silencing the crowd.
お静かになさいませ。始まりですわ。
It was a solemn ritual. Rikichan entered dressed as a shrine maiden, followed by members of the municipal committee. The elders all looked at Rikichan and clasped their hands in praise. The only thing allowed to disturb the profound silence was the flash from Tomitaka-san's camera.
リカちゃんが持ってるあのでかいのはなんだ？
祭事用のクワだよ。巫女さんしか触っちゃいけない神聖な農具なの。
It was an awkward shape for a piece of farm equipment, not uncommon for something used in rituals. After reciting a Shinto prayer, Rika-chan approached the pile of futons gathered at the altar. She swung the hoe skillfully, plowing into the futons. Each and every little movement of this performance probably had to be done in a certain way. Without a doubt, this was a ritual.
今度はなんだ？布団叩きかな？
あれはね、人間に代わって冬の病魔を吸い取ってくれたお布団を清めてるの。
ケイちゃんのお布団叩きって表現もまあ外れじゃないかね。
Rika-chan's face was already dripping with sweat. That hoe was probably really heavy. There's definitely a joke in there somewhere. She staggered side to side with the momentum of each swing. Satsuko looked on, silently lending her support.
心配か？
リカは毎日お餅つきのきねきっとやりきるでございますわ。
Satsuko's hands were sweaty. Whenever Rika-chan started to sway a little, she held her breath.
ミオンとかは巫女役、リカちゃんにあの重さは気の毒だよ。
そりゃ頼まれりゃやるけどね。まあ誰にでも務まるものでもないし。
そうだよな。ミコは清らかじゃないとダメだもんな。
Mion drove her elbow into my side. With the thud of the big drum, Rika-chan gave a solemn bow and descended from the altar. That triggered a round of generous applause. After the Shinto priest had raised up the cleansed futons like a portable altar, all the spectators stood up. Following after the priest, we all marched on at a moderate pace. They descended the shrine's giant stairs in a line.
今度は何が始まるの？布団を川で洗濯か？
だから綿流しだってば。
I did not know that, but alright. The procession continued right up to the bank of the stream. A fire was stoked high, and it was bright as day here, too. People started crowding around it and clamoring.
はい、順番。並ぶよ、ケイチ君。
I wonder what was up. Maybe we'd get some holy wine? Red and white bean buns?
食べ物だから綿。
Ah, but of course. They didn't call it the Watanagashi for nothing. I finally understood. The municipal committee members pulled out the cotton from inside the futons and balled it up like mochi, handing it out to people. Reina dove to the line, brought out some for me as well. We then proceeded to the bank of the
ケ
stream.
イチ君は初めてだから、レナのやり方を真似するんだよ。
She held the cotton in her right hand, and waving her hand as if to purify it, she touched it to her forehead, chest, navel, and both thighs. Why
これを
the
3回
thighs?
繰り返すの。心の中では、お社様あり。
お社様？ってなんだよ。あの神社の神様。
ひなみ沢の守り神様なの。ご利益もあるけど、たたりもあるんだからね。
A curse befalling a small mountain village. Where have I seen that before?
ちゃんと敬わないとダメだよ。
That sounded like a pretty frightening god. But, well, when in Rome. I was officially a resident of Hinamizawa now, after all. Doing as Reina showed me, I touched the cotton over myself 3 times. Thank you, Oyashiro-sama.
これでね、体についてた悪いのがこの綿に吸い取られたの。で、あとは沢の流れにそっと流してね。
Together,
おしまい。
Reina and I set our pieces of cotton afloat on the surface of the water. The flowers of cotton blooming in the water had sucked out all the bad illnesses from Hinamizawa and drifted off, disappearing into the distance. It was wonderful, like those floating lantern festivals I'd seen on TV. The best part, though, was feeling like this rite of passage had made me a true resident of Hinamizawa. I have a feeling this god might get a little vengeful at some point, though. At first I was... Oh.
ちょっとした不安だった。誰かを傷つけたいなんて考えもしなかった。それでも、不安は孤独を生んで疑念へと変わり、やがて黒い殺意が心を闇に閉ざしていった。戻らない日常。少年は足を踏み出す。その先が奈落の底だとも気づかずに。
Excuse me?
鬼隠し。信じたいと思う気持ちが生んだ悲劇。流した涙は懺悔か、それとも怨恨か。
Oh. Okay. Interesting. While staring off into the stream, I somehow got separated from Reina. I wasn't very lonely, though. I know this place now. This is where I live. My home. It's probably better if I just stay here instead of wandering around aimlessly. Someone would surely find me while I was enjoying the evening breeze. I heard a familiar voice. It was Tomitaki-san's. I headed towards it.
どうですか、富武さん。いい写真はいっぱい撮れましたか？
ああ、おかげさまでね。
Tomitaki-san was with a girl. I felt a little like I was intruding.
圭一君はどうだったかしら？お祭りは楽しめた？
From the way she spoke, it seemed like she was a resident of Hinamizawa. I really should try harder to remember people's faces here. Especially people with sprites. That means they're somewhat important. What was her name?
その、楽しかったです。
My face must have given away how desperately I was trying to remember her name, because she gave a light-hearted chuckle.
圭一君はまだ引っ越してきて日が浅い。他の子たちととても親しげだったから、とてもそうは思えなかったよ。
That's how it looked. It was probably all thanks to Reina and Mion.
あなたも今日のお祭りに参加して。
どうなんでしょうね。
おや？圭一君らしくない返事だね。
I tried to get used to Hinamizawa, but there were still plenty of things I didn't know. Faces of people I'd met, for example. Things that had happened in the past as well.
なんだ、その程度のことで君は疎遠に感じていたのかい？
疎遠なんて大げさなもんじゃないですよ。ただその、なんていうのか。
The incident at the dam construction site. The fighting over it and other conflicts. That terrible incident they pretended they didn't even know about whenever I brought it up. Even though it was in the past, as someone living in Hinamizawa, it wasn't wrong to want to know about both the good and the bad that had happened here.
それを知ることで君が納得するなら、僕の知っている範囲で何でも教えるよ。
Tomitaka-san's smile made me more relieved than I'd ever been. Okay, but how's Miss Ma'am gonna feel about that? It was hard to think of what to ask when someone said ask me anything, though. Even when there was so much I wanted to ask.
じゃあ、ダム湖ひなみ沢が水没するとかいう大事件だったんですよね。
ダムについては、多分ここの僕が知っている範囲でいいんなら、新聞で読んだ程度だけどね。
I love how we have a Hinamizawa resident right here, but Tomitaki-san's gonna be the only one talking? Tomitaki-san's eyes entered an unfocused gaze as he searched through his memory. Then he spoke.
ダムの計画が決まったのは7、8年くらい前なんだ。黒部に次ぐ巨大な計画だったと聞いてるね。
There were three major issues in Japan at that time. Improving inter-island transportation infrastructure, meeting the higher demand for electricity, and flood control. There was a boom of dam building due to the massive economic stimulus they provided on top of generating electricity and flood control. Hinamizawa had the right conditions to support dam construction, so it was singled out.
ダムの完成に伴って生まれるダム湖はかなりの面積になったらしいね。このひなみ沢からずっと上流の矢郷地あたりまでが全部沈むことになったらしい。
しかし、なんだって人が住んでるひなみ沢にもっと他の 人が住んでないところに作ればいいのに。
よくは知らないんだが、ダムを作るのに適した地形ってのがあったって聞いてるね。
Of course, there were protests here in Hinamizawa. Big-chan had said that they had fought. From that choice of words, I had to guess things had turned violent.
裁判にもなったし、議会でも取り上げられたんだ。東京の新聞にも載ったよ。
Yona told me all about that as well. I'm sure every resident of Hinamizawa had united to fight together. The feeling of solidarity found here, which could not be expressed properly with mere words, was likely brought about by that battle.
で、
Where'd the blonde
いろ
woman
いろな
go?
不祥事や汚職が発覚してね、ややこしいことになっているうちに工事中止が決まったんだそうだよ。
If I wanted to know, now is my only chance. It was certainly a bizarre incident that boys my age would be curious about. Felt a little shame from the fact that I was pretty enough to have my curiosity... Petty, Jesus. I was like, what does your looks have to do with this? I felt a little shame from the fact that I was petty enough to have my curiosity piqued by Reina Mion's refusal to talk about the event. I figured I might as well ask since I had the chance. Just so I would stop thinking about it so much.
あったよ。偶然その時期にひなみ沢にいてね。だからよく覚えてるよ。
So did blonde woman like leave before he started telling his story, or like midway through telling the story? Because usually if they leave, the sprite just fades out, right? But like, Tomitaka-san's answer was nonchalant in contrast to my hesitantly forced out question.
ちょうど4年前の今頃だったかな。あれも確か綿流しの日だったね。
Debate on whether to continue construction on the dam was in disarray. Scandal after scandal rocked the project near the end. Oh, okay. So you're saying after they hold a festival, after they pray to their god of both blessings and curses, that, oh, somehow someone ended up being dismembered by the waterside. Uh-huh. Surely there's no connection there, no. It was the act of Oyashiro. Absolutely. It was an act of a vengeful god. Totally. Definitely nothing else going on, right? The incident that was the final nail in the coffin for the dam project. A fight at the dam construction site ended in the victim being murdered. Fearing prosecution, the 6 assailants divided the remains into 6 pieces and each hid 1. 5 of the 6 criminals turned themselves in out of guilt, but 1 was still on the run. The right arm he'd hidden had yet to be found. Major details lined up with what was in the tabloid I'd read earlier. It certainly was a tragic incident, but it wasn't so terrible that Reina and Mio needed to hide it from me. I guess they didn't want someone who just moved here to have a negative impression of Hinamizawa. Well, that's the thing. So we know a relative of Mion's is on like this committee, right? Because we saw that from like the community notes tip. So I'm guessing, much like the story that plays out in the Shell Part 2, they're like the elders of the family like had a hand in it. Not necessarily were the ones who did it, but like knew about it and whatnot. And maybe in this case, Mion actually knows about that. And that's why she's so quick to shut it down and not talk about it. Not necessarily because it's a sensitive topic, but because she knows of her family's involvement in it, mayhaps. I felt grateful for having friends who worried so much about me, as well as the shame for still being so interested in it. Yeah, I don't think they're really worried about you. The one that interests me is Reina. Because isn't she fairly recent as well? Like, Tomitake says the incident happened roughly 4 years ago. But didn't Reina move in here within, like, only a year prior to Keiichi moving here? Isn't that what I remember reading? Because from what I could tell, it seems like the timelines didn't match up for Reina to be here when the incident occurred. But yet Reina is also very hush-hush about it. Maybe because she's been here so long that she found out in some way, shape, or form? Not sure.
当時はダムのトラブルの末期だったからね。親代様のたたりだって言って、
Yep.
随分騒がれたんだよ。
Oh, who would have fucking figured? A strange murder happens on the evening of a festival, and the mountain village says, it was the fucking act of our god. Absolutely.
お社様のたたりか。
Oyashiro-sama was the name of the god at the shrine that held the festival today, if I recalled correctly. I see. Their guardian deity rained divine punishment down on the evil dam construction for trying to flood Hinamizawa. So you have been here the whole time. What the fuck? You've just been standing in the corner hearing all this, not feeling like chiming in at all until now? But also... Everyone was saying it was Oyashiro, but the kids didn't listen. The younger ones didn't believe. I mean, people like Mion and her crowd, right? Well, of course not. Because then it would open up for all the shit within the village to be exposed. And all the elders would know that, even though they know the curse is bullshit. The woman with Tomitaka-san chuckled mischievously. Tomitaka-san began laughing with her. It was so infectious I ended up laughing as well.
結構いるんじゃないかしら、若い人にも。
いるって。
信じてる人だ。親代様のたたり。
The woman's lips were still curled into a smile, but her expression turned
そ
stern.
の後ね、毎年起こるんだよ。決まって今頃にね。
怒るって何が？
Tomitaka-san paused for a second, as if to build up some suspense. Then he whispered to me as if someone might have been listening.
毎年綿流しの日になるとね、誰かが死ぬんだよ。
You know, I'm starting to think that the Shell Part 2 definitely took a bit of inspiration from this story. Because, man, this sounds very fucking familiar. Every little detail just keeps sounding more and more fucking familiar.
バラバラ殺人の翌年の綿流しの日、ひなみ沢の住人でありながらダムの誘致派だった男が旅行先で崖下の濁流に転落して死亡した。
I don't trust you, blonde woman. I don't trust your little smirk. I don't trust you in particular.
奥さんに至っては死体も上がってない。
ひなみ沢の人間でありながらダムに賛成していた男ですからね。
All these people who support this dam all mysteriously go disappearing, huh?
事故当時、お年寄りたちはお社様のたたりだとささやきあったものよ。
The woman chuckled mischievously. Yeah, see, it's the mischievous part. It's just like, you're on some shit, woman.
さらに翌年、綿流しの晩、
You're absolutely involved.
今度は神社の神主が原因不明の奇病で急死した。奥さんはその晩のうちに沼に受水自殺した。
神社の神主って今日のこの神社の神主ですか？
The woman nodded.
村人たちはお社様のお怒りを鎮めきれなかったんだ。
Ah, what a convenient cover-up.
さらに翌年、これも今度は近所の主婦が撲殺体で発見された。
Housewife. Up until now, all these mysterious deaths were people involved with the dam or who had connections with Oyashiro-sama. With that in mind, could the housewife have been involved in some way too? Absolutely. It's just that her involvement wasn't as publicly known.
その通りよ。
The woman stated slyly. No, it was more
被
menacingly.
害者の一家はね、その2年前に転落死した
What a
ダム誘致派の男の弟一
coincidence!
家に当たるのよ。
Wow, that's interesting.
弟本人はまだ生きてるらしいね。
for now. Let's see how he feels tomorrow
で
morning.
もやはりかなり気にしてね。
Oh,
近隣の
smart
町
man.
に引っ越してったらしいよ。
For a while, I stood there with my mouth agape. The battle over the dam construction, with Hinamizawa's future at stake, and the murder at the center of it all. Wow. That was all I knew, and that was all I wanted to ask about. That wasn't all there was to the story. Homicide, body disposal, accidental deaths, terminal illness, suicide, fatal beatings. I'm a pretty level-headed person. I don't really want to believe in curses. But the freakish deaths happened every year on the day of the Watanagashi, and all of them were related to the dam construction. It was easy to dismiss each of them as coincidences by themselves. But when you put them all together, dismissing all of them as a coincidence would then defy logic. I don't believe in curses, but every single year on the day of the Watanagashi, somebody or something makes it happen, without fail. Yeah. The woman chuckled again as if she picked up on what I was thinking. Felt like she was saying, maybe there was. Maybe we frightened him. Stuff like that. I felt embarrassed at being read so easily. Pressed Tomitaki-san to continue, a bit of impatience and irritation in my tone.
で、その翌年の渡流し、今度は誰です？
さてね。
あ
The way he said it didn't agree with me. Our sarcastic tone ticked me off. It's been 4 years, Keiichi. We're gonna find out tonight.
はぐらかさないでください。
まあまあ圭一君落ち着いて。
I realized when she tried to calm me down that I'd been panicking.
別にはぐらかしたつもり。つまりその翌年の綿流しってな、つまり
今日よ。
When Tomitaki-san hesitated to say it, she finished for him. I broke into a cold sweat. Really didn't like the direction this was headed.
みんな口にしないけど、今夜また何か起こるんじゃないか
Well,
って
fucking of
思っ
course
て
they
る
would think that.
こんなにお祭りで賑わってるのに？
あのね、去年の被害者の主婦は不審人者だったらしくてね。
Damn, what a crazy coincidence. Definitely read something like that before. That when someone gets murdered, they always put it on, they weren't a strong enough believer. Mm-hmm.
綿流しのお祭りに参加しなかったらしい。
Oh, what a fucking coincidence. Yeah, that's crazy. She didn't even attend the festival. Oh, Kate, you might want to check on your parents, bud. Because that's the thing. Your mom was like, oh, we'll go to the festival when your dad wakes up. But for all you know, one of them's going to end up dead. The death gets pinned on the other. And then they're like, it's the work of the Oyashiro. She was a non-believer. Yeah, because they did that. Once again, they did that shit in the shell where she doesn't show up to the festival, and that's because while everyone was at the festival, she was being fucking murdered.
今年の綿流しに参加しないとお社様の怒りに触れるかもしれないって噂。
Definitely heard that one
圭一
before.
君なら聞いてるんじゃないかい？
Fuck no, I heard nothing about this. Never even heard a whisper of that rumor.
じゃあみんなのお祭りの参加はたたりを恐れて？
そうなんじゃないかと思うね。今年の綿流しは例年になく参加者が多いよ。
やっぱりみんな怖いんでしょうね。お社様のた。
I couldn't utter a single word. In this modern age, we've made progress in all scientific fields, shedding light on the unknown and misunderstood. Where black and white television has been eradicated and we've sent men to the moon. With all of our accomplishments, this can exist in modern society?
桜ってことで近隣の町の子供会をかなり招待したらしいけど。
I mean, Keiichi does kind of have a point, because what, this takes place in 83, if I remember correctly? It's currently 1983. like obviously I keep making references back to the Shell Part 2. I'm trying to remember exactly when that took place. At least that initial festival that we see. I'm pretty sure at some point in the 40s. Right, because then what the fuck was his name? Then the kid Tomoyuki? Masaki, goddamn it, there we go, Masaki. Then Masaki ends up, enlisting in the army and going to war. So it takes place at some point in the early 40s. So that's definitely a big step up from the current day. Although shit was still happening even after Reiji gets involved, but that was still only in the 50s. So like this is a good 20 years ahead of where anything in the Shell takes place. So like I would say, yeah, no, the society has advanced quite a bit. You'd think something like this wouldn't be quite flying in the 80s, but that's the thing about these mountain villages.
やっぱり一連の事件を受けてあんまり参加はなかったみたいね。
We sent out invitations to neighboring towns, but few decided to
人
join.
集めに苦労してるって町会の人がぼやいてたもの。
Damn, that's crazy.
警察もね、過去の事件はすべて別個のもので
Are you out of your
関連性
fucking
はないとして
minds?
るみたいだけどね。
Okay, well, the police around here are fucking dipshits. Because, like, once again, to compare it to the Shell, like, back in, like, the 40s and 50s, there was a police inspector who was constantly attending every single fucking festival because he was damn sure that the cases were fucking connected. Granted, he also had some personal stake in it, being related to one of the victims, but still, like, there was at least one person on the police who was like, oh no, something's definitely up here. There's definitely something amiss here. This shit is way too coincidental to be isolated incidents.
警備ってことで私服警官をだいぶ立たせてたみたいだよ。
Well, it began to dawn on me why Reina and Mion were reluctant to talk. If nothing happened during this Watanagashi, everything would have been over with and I'd be none the wiser. If nothing happened, all would be well. In that case, it would all end up being just crazy talk. Should have just pretended like I knew nothing from the beginning. Then they wouldn't Then they wouldn't have had to act like nothing happened. And we would have all gotten back to life as usual.
やっぱり刺激が強すぎたかしら。
The woman ran her fingers through her hair as she sighed.
いえ、そんな全然。
I mean, I gotta give Homeboy credit. That is a lot to take in all at once. Just all of a sudden you're hit with all that information. That's rough. I tried to act strong, but that just served to emphasize how much the information had unsettled me. After seeing how I looked, Tomitaki-san appeared to regret saying anything. Letting out a sigh, he then spoke, forcing an awkward, upbeat demeanor.
まさか圭一君、たたりなんて信じてるわけじゃないだろう。
That's the thing. I don't believe in curses, which makes it all the more terrifying. Because that means there's someone or multiple people in this village who are orchestrating some heinous shit. And knowing I live amongst them is fucking terrifying. A vengeful god? What are you gonna do about that one? I'm just gonna continue living about my life. Nothing I can really do to stop that. But a fucking conspiracy string of fucking, murderers, like, in your village, like, that's a bit more concerning, a bit more unsettling.
それはまあ。
すべての事件が原因不明で犯人も手口も謎っていうなら僕もたたりを疑ってもいいよ。だけど実際には違う。どの事件もちゃんと警察が捜査して真相や犯人を究明してる。
Hearing him say police made me feel a lot better. It was perfect for repelling the word curse.
例えば一番最初言ったよね。犯人は一人を残して残った一人だって時間動機だって酒の上での口論からと判明。たたりなんかじゃないだろう。
That was true. If it didn't happen on the day of the Watanagashi, then I wouldn't think it was related to the curse at all.
次の誘致派の夫婦の事故死だってそうさ。
That's the thing, though. That's the thing, though. Just because the perpetrators have been caught doesn't mean it's not still orchestrated in some fashion.
恨みを買う立場だったからね。警察が特に入念に捜査したと思うよ。それで発表は事故、他殺じゃない。
でもまた綿流しの日に起きたんです。
考えてもみなよ。ひなみ沢に敵が多かった彼が地元のお祭りにおちおち参加できると思うかい？彼にとっては綿流しの時期は特にひなみ沢に居づらい時期に違いない。だからわざわざこの時期に旅行をし、意図的にひなみ沢を離れようとしたんじゃないかな。
It wasn't a very clear explanation, but I sort of understood what Tomitake-san was getting at. So I pressed on earnestly, asking more questions so that I could convince myself.
じゃあ富武さん、その次に死んだ神主さんは原因不明の奇病だ。それもまたしても綿流しの日に。
神主さんはもっと説明がつき、綿流しのお祭りは神主さんにとっては、あるいはもともと持病持ちだ。
でも奇病ですよ。この医学の進歩した時代に。
尾ひれだよ。噂が噂を呼ん、2年立て続けに事件が起これば、急死は確かに不自然だったかも。こういう死に方をすると必ず警察が検証で、事件性は発見されなかったんだろう。本当に偶然の病死なんだよ。
確か神主の奥さん。じゃあこれは
すでに説明したと。3年目の事件に村人たち、信心深い人たちはすぐにたたりだと。もちろん神主の奥さん、自殺の際に死んで親代様の怒りを押し詰めするみたいな遺書が見つかったらしいし。
Yeah, because suicide notes definitely can't be forged and planted or anything.
じゃあ次のまたしても綿流しの日に。
この事件は犯人も逮捕されて、一種の異常者でひなみ沢のたたり騒ぎを面白がって再現したと自供してる。
じゃあ次の年の事件は
Oh yeah, this year is the next year. Tomitake-san gave a hearty laugh.
もう何も起こらん。今度こそね。
How do you know? What makes you say that, bud? What makes you so confident in that one?
親代様のたたりなんてもともとない。
Yeah, sure, brush the curse under the rug. That's all fine, well and good. Pretty confident being like, oh, don't worry. Nothing's gonna happen this year.
一連の偶然をあると信じている人たちがそうだと吹聴しているだけさ。
I don't believe you. My internal computer finally got itself back on track. Felt a bit embarrassed by how childish I'd become after losing control and panicking.
僕は圭一君がひなみ沢をとても好き。仮に親代様のたたりがそんな圭一君にたたりがあるなんてとても思えないね。
I felt very relieved. I should probably just forget everything I heard tonight. No, you should definitely remember that. That seems very important. I'll greet Reina and Mio tomorrow with the same smile as always. They'd probably also like tonight to end without incident so they can continue on tomorrow without having worried me. Perhaps seeing my change in attitude, the woman who had been listening in stretched as she got up from the rock she was sitting on.
そろそろ私はも
おっと、僕も少々長くおしゃべりしすぎたかな。
There were so few people compared to the crowd from before, I could only make out a few groups of families enjoying the cool evening air. I looked at my watch. It seemed we talked for the better part of an hour.
圭一君もお友達とみんなを探したら。
そうだった。みんな俺のことを探し。
女の子に探させるなんてなかなかの罪。
じゃあね、おやすみなさい。次郎さんもね。また後ほど。
Jiro. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Tomitake-san seems to be quite the scoundrel himself. So his name is Jiro. After dusting off her backside, she disappeared into the crowd of people still busy cleaning up the shrine grounds. Yeah, the cheerful music isn't really doing it for me here. In her place, Reina came running over. What a coincidence. I could see all the others behind her. Speak of the devil.
悪いケイちゃん、すっかり話し込んじゃっててさ。
I completely forgot about them while caught up in my own conversation, so we were even.
あら、富武さんもご一緒でございました。ちょうどよかったですわ。今日の射的の結果発表がありますです。
ああ、そうだったね。結局ビリは僕なのかな。
In the end, after my dramatic victory, Riki-chan was the last challenger, but there weren't many targets left. The ones remaining were all tiny and difficult to hit. She did take her time and aim, but all 3 shots completely missed. She was to end up sharing the loser's crown with Tomitake-san. However, she did her little meep and cry in front of the owner, and he turned to mush instantly. She was given a pack of gum as a consolation prize. Her methods were a bit audacious, but she did avoid being the loser rather magnificently.
思うにリカちゃんって結構
圭一の言ってる意味がわかりませんです。
なわけでビリは富武さんに決まり。
Everyone cheered and applauded. Tomitake-san smiled wryly, slightly bewildered.
じゃあ富武さん、覚悟はいいかな？罰ゲーム。
え？あ、忘れてた。
You're too naive, Tomitake-san. This is why you've got to avoid losing in our club. Mion pulled a felt tip marker from her pocket. Oh, it's that.
ミオン、武士のなすせめて水星にしてやれ。優勢は辛い。
油性じゃないとダメだよ。お洗濯したら落ちちゃうじゃない。
なんでお手柔らかに頼むよ。
All of us pinned his arms behind his back, and Mion approached him with the marker in one hand.
キュッキュッキュッ。
But she didn't write on Tomitake-san's face. She wrote on the shirt he was wearing. You'd better have your big break this year. Signed, Mion. Reina took up the marker next. Show me your photos next time, okay? It was a little heartwarming, and I just had to laugh.
これじゃあ罰ゲームって。
ちゃんと罰ゲームできますわ。
Haha, dead last. Try harder next time.
圭一さんもどうぞでございます。
Couldn't decide what to write, but based on what kind of penalty this was probably the most appropriate. Come back and play again. Tomitake-san was silent the entire time. First he was quite bewildered, but now he had a different look on his face.
これを着たまま帰郷するのも罰ゲームのうち。
もちろん。ちゃんと着たまま家に帰ってね。
次に来る時にも着ていいな。
He appeared deeply moved. Embarrassment mixed with a wealth of other emotions made him turn a bright red.
わかった。次に来る時もこれを着てくれ。約束する。
Everyone cheered and applauded. It was the finest parting gift possible for a buddy heading out tonight. Saw the woman who was with Tomitake-san staying near the festival grounds. Seemed Tomitake-san noticed her too and knew it was time to leave.
お連れ様がお待ちみたいじゃん。そろそろお時間かな。
そうみたいだね。
Tomitake-san headed off towards her and seemed to apologize for making her wait. We all shouted stuff at Tomitake-san. Each time we did, he looked back and waved his hand. Eventually, he faded into the darkness of the night, out of sight. It was quite the casual farewell. This wasn't the first time any of us had seen someone off. They had done the same thing many times before.
行っちゃったね。
じゃ、うちらも引き上げるかね。
Riki-chan had to stay behind with the other committee members since they were having a meeting. Satoko was tagging along with her. I head back home with the usual suspects. The walk back was quite lively, with talk of the day's war stories. Should have done this, should have done that kind of stuff. Reina and I parted ways with Mion, then it was just the two of us. Then we got to my house, and I parted ways with Reina as
こ
well.
んな時間だけど一人で大丈夫か？
全然平気。近いし走っていくし。
変な奴がいたら大声出せよ。
出したら助けに来てくれるのかな。
聞こえたらな。
聞こえるくらい大きな声を出すね。
Merrily spinning her arms around at high speed, Reina dashed off. She was fine. In that mode, not even an adult could stand against her. Reina's cheerful presence disappeared, and it finally became quiet again. The curse that not a soul mentioned, even under their breath. The more I learned about it tonight, the more unsettling it became. It didn't show any of their faces, but they were probably all quite concerned about it as well. If nothing happens tonight, then it all ends up being just crazy talk. Nothing will happen tonight. Nothing bad. Nothing at all.
どうしたのケイチ、そんなところで。
Well, Mom's alive, for now.
中に入りなさい。風邪をひくわよ。
It was my mom.
母さんは行った？綿流しのお祭り。
結局お父さんが起きなかったから行きそびれちゃったわ。残念。
Mom stuck her tongue out with a bit of an embarrassed look on her face. So Pops is still out, huh? Is he ever going to wake up? Holy shit. Oh, hold up a minute. Hojo couple's falling incident? Isn't that Satoko's surname? The Shinto priest Furude, which is Rika's surname. Housewife murder? Is that going to be connected to Reina in some way? Or maybe Mion? Interesting. Well, let's hit the tabloids. From the June 1980 edition. On the afternoon at 2 p.m., an office employee and his wife of Hinamizawa Village in Shishibone Prefecture disappeared after falling 27 meters from the observatory platform in Shirakawa Prefecture. Police and firefighters searched downstream and discovered the body at around 7 p.m. that evening. His wife has yet to be found. The search has run into difficulties due to the effects of Typhoon 3 from the previous day. Ah, what a convenient excuse. It appeared a railing at the observatory that the leaned on had broken, causing them to fall. The groundskeeping staff was questioned by the police in regards to facility deterioration and if park maintenance was performed properly. Hojo. And the death of the priest Furude. From the June 1981 edition. On the afternoon of around 10 p.m. in the district of Hinamizawa Village in Shishibone Prefecture, the Shinto priest of the Furude shrine passed away after an existing condition he was recovering from suddenly worsened. Parties close to the deceased said he was suffering from anxiety issues concerning the festival, which was to be held that day. Also, after death, his wife went missing, leaving behind a farewell note. The police and local youth association continued the search. However, given the presence of the farewell message and the fact that the Onikakushi swamp is said to be bottomless, they have run into difficulties. Tell me about this housewife then. It wasn't reported in the newspaper. Okay. I mean, I guess that is something to think about. These were big enough to make the newspaper news, but somehow this instant, a housewife being murdered. Like, these ones were accidental, right? These ones were supposedly, well, accidental and then illness / a suicide, right? So where there's no actual perpetrator because either it was something they couldn't control or something they did to themselves, right? And those actually made the headlines, but someone got murdered and that didn't end up in the newspaper. That maybe didn't even get reported. Got swept under the rug. But Tometake told us that the perpetrator had been caught, right? He said that one didn't go cold or anything. The perpetrator had been caught. And yet it was never reported in the newspaper. Let's hear about this radio log.
3号です。感度良好。応援が向かいました。別名あるまで医師願います。どうぞ。はい、3号了解。それから回転灯はつけないでお願いします。静かで願います。今、先生が到着しました。運びたいそうですがどうしますか？どうぞ。了解しました。先生に任せてください。はい、了解です。応援も到着し、先に写真撮らせた方がいいんじゃない？外車、もう無駄だと思いますし。
Is that what just happened? Is that this year?
Keiちゃん、昨日はお疲れ様。
ミオンこそお疲れさんな。昨日は楽しかったぜ。
そうそう。ケイチくん、本当にありがとね、クマさん。
気に入ってもらえて嬉しいぜ。裁縫針とか刺したりするのに使うなよ。
しないよ、 そんなこと。
Still chatting happily, we entered the classroom. The moment I stepped into the room, a splashing sound and a nasty sensation. It was a bucket filled to the brim with water, and unfortunately my foot stepped right into it.
あら、朝から雑巾がけとは熱心でございますわね。
Plump, 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 whip, whiff.
うわー、ケイチさんがデコピンした。今度はもっと凶悪な罠を仕掛けなさいですよ。
Seeing that, Reina began to swoon as Mion looked on in disbelief. Everything was the same as always. Everybody was there, and nothing felt out of place. The uncertainties I'd had in the back of my mind since yesterday had vanished.
どうしたの、ケイチ君。ひょっとして寝不足かな。
バッチリ爆睡したよ。なんなら授業中にも実演するぜ。
ダメだよ、そんなの。
Mion alerted us that the teacher was coming, so everyone shuffled off to their seats.
皆さん、おはようございます。
The teacher has a sprite now?
昨日はお祭りでしたね。最後まで後片付けに参加した人たちは本当にお疲れ様でした。
Okay, so this isn't the first time the teacher has spoken, but now all of a sudden they actually get a sprite? Why the switch up? We were all slackers, so none of us actually helped clean up. Actually, I had a feeling that the only thing we did was run around the festival and cause a ruckus.
さて、この時期にはお祭りの取材で遠くから雑誌なんかの取材の方が見えたりします。
I thought it was the usual stuff, so I was going to tune it out, but then I noticed the different tone in her voice, started paying attention.
皆さんが取材を受けることがあるかもしれませんが、曖昧なことやいい加減なことは言わないように。いいですね。
In unison, everyone replied, "Yes, ma'am." What she said was really vague, but I understood what she was trying to say. After all, this was the 5th year. There were probably lots of third-rate reporters pouring in, hoping something regarding the curse had happened. It did nothing but perpetuate the village's bad image. She was saying, don't spout stupid shit you think is funny. And now, I was one of the ones who needed to keep their mouths shut. Found it rather cute how I felt a sense of unity from such a trite thing, if I do say so myself. I was summoned to club activities after school. Since everybody was still pretty tired from yesterday, we just spent the day relaxing. Yeah, that wasn't happening.
今日は本格派の推理ゲームでいこう。
Among Us?
こんなのはどうかな。
お、海外もののゲームか。
Among Us.
面白そうだな。
説明書も英語ですけどね。ルールはそう難しくはありませんのよ。負けないからね。僕はこのゲーム苦手じゃないですよ。
It seemed that Reina didn't handle this kind of game very well. Ah, you don't like lying to people, do you?
ルールはね、事件の犯人と凶器、あと犯行現場の3つを当てられた人が勝ち。
Clue. Classic. There were 3 kinds of cards, comprised of suspects, weapons, and locations. I could see that the names Mion and Rico were written on the suspect cards. Oh, a card with my name on it as well.
凶器のカードにもいろいろ斧やらナイフやら犯行現場のカードも渋いぞ。
Okay. Yeah, you're gonna play a game where someone gets murdered and you have to figure out the weapon and the suspect location. Seems a bit on the nose, alright.
リビングやら書斎やら中庭やら。
つまりね、これらのカードが1枚、それが正解のカードで、残ったカードは互いに手持ちのカードを質問し合って、抜かれた正解のカードが何かを探るわけ。
I see. So the cards nobody has are the true
それ
perpetrators.
で答えが分かったゲームを終了して、答えが正しいか正解なら勝ちで1ポイント、外れていればマイナス1ポイント、正解してもしなくてもゲーム終了だから、カードは集めて仕切り直しってわけ。
やってみればわかるでございますわ。結構頭を使うでございますわよ。メモを取りながらじゃないと混乱しますです。
あとはやって覚えるさ。で、ミオン、今回の罰ゲームは何だ？
Everyone directed their attention to Mion.
そうだね。じゃあ昨日の疲れも多少あるだろうから、 今日はソフトにみんなからお使いを頼まれてそれを買いに走るってわけ。
つまりジュースとかお菓子とかを買いに行かされる。今日の罰ゲームは簡単そうな気がしますです。
I wonder, is it really?
やはりケイチさんもそう。
ああ、何を買いに行かされるかわからないからな。
I'm betting Mion would send out whoever loses to buy stuff like hemorrhoid cream or happy family planning manual or other crazy stuff. The cards were lightly shuffled and passed out to each player. The real perpetrator, the correct weapon, and the scene of the murder have been taken out, so that means all the cards I have in my hand are innocent cards.
じゃあ1番は部長のミオン、ナイフ、書斎。
You pick one suspect, weapon, and murder scene, and ask the other players. If you have any of those cards, then you must say I have one. However, you don't need to say which one you have.
あ、俺持ってるぜ。
レナもあるよ。僕も持ってますです。
So you know all of those are wrong.
あら、完全な同志ですわね。
Three people answered when she asked if they had Mion, knife, and study. So that means Mion, and knife, and study are all in the clear. Got to jot that down.
じゃあレナはね、レナ、オノ、ラウンジだよ。
Why do y'all keep guessing yourselves? Only two people said they had one. So it means out of Reina, Axe, and Lounge, one of them is correct and is part of the crime? Yes. No, wait. Even if they say have one, they don't have to say how many. Also true. It's possible that either Satoko or Rika-chan has two of the cards.
じゃあ次はケイちゃんだね。どうぞ。
待ってくれよ。まだ整理中。
Game has me thinking more than I thought. Oh man, this feels like it's going to be tough.
よっしゃ、犯人確定。
何？もう？
Here I'm spinning around in circles and Mio just now raises her
犯
hand.
人はリカちゃん。凶器は毒物で、犯行現場は医務室。どう？
Mio drew the cards from the box and we checked to see if her deduction was right.
正解だね。
あと一手だったですのに。毒物かピストルかわからなかったでございます。ピストルなんか使わないです。
I would never use a pistol.
毒物でじわりじわりがいいのです。
Jesus, Rika. Rika-chan said such a hugely terrifying thing with such a sweet little face. Everyone was making a commotion about how they almost had it. Reina and I were left out in the cold, though.
ケイチ君はどうだ？レナは全然。
安心しろ。俺もさっぱりだ。
二人ともな。二人仲良くビリになっちゃうよ。
That's even worse. Going off buying something together as a couple? What if we ended up having to buy the Happy Family Planning Manual?
ケイチはこのゲーム苦手そうな顔して。
全然そんなこと。次でシャーロック前原の実力を見せて。
Sherlock, my bother.
あら、それはいいですわね。徹底的に叩きのめして差し上げますわ。
After that, I managed to somewhat grasp the trick behind the game, but I was still always a step or two behind. I saw that Mion was somehow gleaning information from how the others were asking their questions. That level of experience was just too much. The only way I could stage a comeback was if I became ruthless. I tossed out the simple concept of deduction and switched over to the thought process needed to win. The important thing isn't to find out the criminal, it's to win at the game. Eureka.
あ、ごめん。ちょっと
ゆっくりブリブリしておいで。
みーちゃん、それ下品。
I had them hold off the game and headed down the hall. The air was crisp. Showed just how stagnant the air in the classroom was from our body heat. On the school grounds, some of our classmates were still playing around. Spending some time cooling my head, Reina had made her way over towards me.
ケイチ君。
ああ、読んだ。
As I got up from my seat, I winked over at Reina. I'm glad it worked out.
時間の無駄なので、担当レナ、お前の今日のゲームの過去の戦績は？
She was taken aback. After a moment, she hesitantly opened her mouth.
どうしてそんなこと聞くんだろう。
I could tell from how apprehensively she was
この
playing.
ままでいくと、俺もそうなる。今日のゲームは大逆転の秘策が思いつく。
じゃあ今日の罰。
おいおい、早くも負けを勝ちに行こうぜ。俺たちで。
でもどうやって？
I brought my lips to Reina's ear. Whisper, 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 whisper.
そん
By any means necessary.
忘れたのかレナ。勝つために全ての努力をしよ
頑張るよ。
Our plan of attack was quite rudimentary one. At the beginning of the game, everyone would be focused on their own hand for a while, taking notes and whatnot. Since our seats were right next to each other, we'd reveal our hands to each other. If we did it under the desk, nobody would know. Yeah, right. We begin the game with twice as much information as everyone else. Having this much information would mean we need to investigate less.
う。この作戦なら他の連中よりも確実なリードを持って返
And
して
watch,
い
you're
る。
still gonna get smoked. We could probably
今
win.
度こそ勝てそうだよ。
We both smirked at each other. If I was the shady businessman, then Reina was the corrupt senator. Pleasure doing business with you.
じゃあ早速戻ろうよ。
おいおい、二人で一緒に戻っちゃいいかにも打ち合わせしてきましたって感じだぞ。
あ、ごめん。
レナは先に戻れ。俺は洗面所で顔でも洗って。
わかったね。
Reina turned around and headed back to the classroom. Guess she should wait a bit longer before going back. If I went too soon, it would seem like I went to the bathroom. If Mion or one of them suspected something, then there sure could be problems. Well, they'd figure it out sooner or later, because both Reina and I would start winning over and over again. Both Reina and I will have earned up enough points to avoid being the losers by the time Mion realized what was happening. Excellent. Not bad at all.
前原くん、ちょっといいですか？
It's the teacher. And things are just getting good.
何ですか？
前原くんに昇降口へ行ってください。
お客さん？俺別に。
待たせていますよ。早く行ってきなさい。
Right before my big match was pretty bad timing to have a visitor, but the very fact that someone was here to see me was strange enough to pique my interest. Didn't want to waste any time, so I decided to take care of it quickly. The entry was a heavy contrast from the hot sunlight and deep shadows. Waiting there, looking uncomfortably warm as was a middle-aged man, his tie sloppily loosened, and his jacket tucked underneath his arm. Yeah, your dad's dead, and that's the officer.
前原さんですか?
Yeah.
前原圭一さん.
There's no question that he wasn't a resident of Hinamizawa. That was without a doubt the first time he had met me. Ever since I met Tomitaki-san, it seemed I was fated to meet middle-aged men.
そうですよ。どちら様ですか？
私の車、エアコンが効いてますから。
Ah, this is the guy with the AC, of course.
ここ暑くありません?
The man, completely ignoring my question, pointed over to his car parked near the gate and began walking. You've got to be kidding me. I had no intention of going along with some geezer I didn't even know, and he was asking me to get in his car with him?
だって悔しい。どうぞどうぞ。
He opened the back door of his car and called me over. I didn't like this old man, but I wanted to know what this was about. Even while knowing that conversations that start out like this have never led to anything good. The inside of his car was pretty cool. Cars with air conditioners were supposed to be a luxury. My dad didn't even have one in his car, at least. Speaking of your dad.
冷えすぎだったら言ってください。私ガンガンに冷やしちゃうたちですから。
で、俺に何の用ですか？
Out of spite, I decided to ignore his remark in the same way he did to me and start my own line of questioning. He pulled out a notepad from his pocket and took out a picture that was stuck between the pages. On it was the face of a pretty goofy-looking guy.
この男性のことでご存知のことがあったら教えてください。
What the heck is this? I know even his close friends would be able to recognize who he was from this expressionless picture that looked like it was taken at the DMV.
シャツにマジックで落書きがありましたね。
Oh, Tomitake was the victim, huh? Honestly, wasn't expecting that. I was kind of suspecting he was in on it, and maybe it's because he knew he wasn't in on it, but he clearly knew too much, right? That blonde woman, whoever the fuck she was, right? She picked up on like, oh, this reporter well, he's not even a reporter, he's a photographer, right? Like, oh, he knows a bit too much, huh?
前原さんをはじめクラスメイト何人？
え？これ、富武さん？
There's no hint of his usual unreliable and easygoing personality in this photo. It was an expressionless, half-asleep face.
では、こちらの女性はわかりますか?
Even before seeing it, I had a good idea of who it was.
名前は知りませんけど、ゆうべ富武さんと一緒にいた女の人です。
I didn't know what her name was, but I did know she was a resident of Hinamizawa.
この二人に最後。
綿流しのお祭りの晩、一緒二人とも仲良さそうでしたよ。
何か気になったこととかありませんか？何でも結構です。話してください。
Being asked for every little detail is very troubling, honestly. I had a pretty good idea of who this guy was by now.
富武さんたちに 何かあったんですか?
There was no response to my inquiry. Thus, I replied to that silence in kind. I was pretty sure, no, certain, that this guy was a cop. Then why? Why was he asking about Tomitaki-san? Did something happen to him? More importantly, why me? Shouldn't there have been plenty of other people who knew more about him than I did? Well, because your name was written on his fucking shirt, dipstick. The roar of the air conditioner felt unbearably loud. After a long pause, he finally spoke again.
前原さんはまだこちらに越されてきたばご存知ですかな。例の親代様の話は。
My heart began to race. Pretty terrible at hiding things. Probably showed on my face.
全く知らないな。
まあ、富武さんに教えてもらっ。
どの辺までご存知ですか?
The dismemberment killing, the accidental death, death by illness followed by suicide, and the lady who was beaten to death. The incidents always happened on the day of the Watanagashi, ending in suspicious deaths. I didn't think Tomitaki-san would have kept anything from me. I think that was everything. No, rather, I didn't want to think there was anything more than that.
前原さんはそのタタリ
Not in the
とかを
slightest.
信じていますか? 率直なところで結構です。
信じてません。
My answer was instant. It wasn't so much that I didn't believe in it as I was on the verge of believing. I wanted to clear away my own doubts. That was the more prominent feeling.
本当に? ならよかった。やっぱり前原さんは都会育ちですね。
信じてなかったら俺、仲間を待たせてるんで。
その写真の男性は昨晩お亡くなりになりました。
My mind went blank. Huh? What happened to Tomitaki-san?
よりにもよってね、つまり綿流しの当日。
Did he know he was going to die? Because whenever we press about oh, but what about the next year? And he's like, I guess we'll see, bud. And they said he kind of had a look of sadness when they told him to come back next year. Did he know? And he was having some kind of deeper conversation with the blonde woman, and clearly there was some connection between those two, almost as if he was in on something, right?
前原さんにはどういう意味があるのか。
意味って、意味なんか。
Not any for the cause of his death or the reasons behind it. The real problem was that he died on the day of the Watanagashi, meaning this year, the curse of Oyashiro-sama had once again.
富武二郎さんがお亡くなりになられたことは、どうしてかはなんとなくお分かりになりますよね。
I want to understand why.
教えてください。一体。
得意なんです。ひなみ沢の方にはちょっと刺激の強い。
It was a roundabout way of saying it, but it caused me to doubt whether or not I wanted to hear the rest. I would only regret forcing myself to learn of something I shouldn't. Or at least that's how I figured I would feel if I listened to the rest.
第一発見は祭りの警備を終えて期間中のうちのワゴンでした。時刻は24時5分前。場所は町へ出る道路がちょうど舗装道路に変わるところ、坂を下り切ったあたりに、あそこの路肩でした。
There were few streetlights on that road. Its pitch black darkness was only broken by the lights of passing cars and the moon. It was a stroke of luck that Tomitaki-san was spotted collapsed on the shoulder of the road. Tomitaki-san was face down, covered in blood. Blood and muck covered the asphalt.
みんなはじめはひき逃げされたものだと思う。ですが、意識を確かめるために近づいた警官はすぐに喉がね、引き裂かれていたんですよ。
Maybe as a sign of talking too much? A little symbolic gesture?
ナイフとか?
爪でした。
Oh, fuck. Nails? As in fingernails? You mean his neck was clawed through?
検視の結果、それも自分の爪でということが判明しました。
それってどういうことですか?
Basically, it means it wasn't a murder, it was suicide. Tomitaki-san, whatever was going through his mind, tore open his own throat. Huh. Huh. Damn. Like, I could think of like some possibilities as to why you would like reach for your own throat and maybe like, grab at it a bit, like if he was poisoned in some way or something. But to have such a reaction to where you would claw it open. All I can possibly think of is that he was given some kind of food or drink that was spiked with some kind of hallucinogenic, right? And then shortly afterwards was given some kind of food or drink that caused like some kind of sensation in his throat that would cause him to go fucking wild. Because I don't believe for a second he sanely in his own right mind did that to himself as an act of suicide. That seems like that's just the story they want to give so no one looks for a fucking murderer, right? Much like the other, accidental and suicidal deaths that we've seen in the past. But yeah, trying to think of like what would actually cause that. So like, cause they did an autopsy that reveals it was, so they know for sure, or at least for what we're hearing from the cop, the cop isn't necessarily giving us the proper information. Cops will definitely give you false information just to judge your reaction to something. But if we're taking it at face value, really my mind can only think of like he would have to have been hallucinating in some capacity. Because that's the only way I can think of like someone intentionally just clawing at their body in general, but especially to the point of tearing their own fucking throat open. It would have to be some kind of hallucinogenic or some kind of extreme narcotic, right? Because you hear about people who do like meth and whatnot, and they feel like they have like the bugs under the skin, and that leads to them like picking at their skin, so they usually have large sores and whatnot on their body because they will like pick at their skin and whatnot. So something along those lines. And somehow, like, whoever gave him this drug or whatever managed to, I don't know, direct his reaction towards his throat in some capacity. I don't know, definitely. But that's the thing, if they did a full autopsy, then they would know that drugs were found in the system. Unless I guess I don't know how far advanced forensics were in the 80s. Like, I'm sure they could definitely tell that his throat was clawed open, right? And maybe even be able to tell that it was his own fingernails that did it. But maybe that kind of drug testing wasn't a thing back then. I don't know for sure. But like, if drugs were involved, I feel like that's something they'd be able to figure out. And that hasn't been mentioned to us at all yet. Because even if he's involved with it, with everything going on, right? The actual willingness to do that, and even the ability to do that, quite honestly, like, fuck, I feel like you just could not do that in a sane state of mind. So maybe it was done with some kind of hyper-specific drug that, maybe this person who did this to him, whoever, maybe it's the blonde woman, maybe it's someone connected, she has connections with, maybe they have some kind of connection to pharmaceuticals, which, if that's the case, once again, that would make the Shell Part 2 a bit more inspired by it if that was the case. But someone with access to pharmaceuticals who knew that, like, oh, this certain combination of drugs could induce this kind of reaction and then also have a very short lifespan in the blood of the victim. Maybe? Yeah, as hard as he could with his own nails. Tore through the skin until he started to bleed, and even then, Tomitake-san didn't stop. That's the thing. The actual conviction to do that would be so intense that, like, there's no way you could do that in a sober, insane state of mind. I just can't believe that. He continued clawing. With enough intensity that could have peeled off his nails, still clawing. Still clawing. Then as his nails reached those vital arteries that you should never damage, he continued clawing. Blood splattered on the ground around him. As he bled, while gasping for breath, he collapsed, his body spasmed, and he died in agony. Like I said, there's no way he was either sane or sober. Right? One of those had to be altered. His state of mind had to be altered in some capacity.
薬物を疑いましたが、そういう類のものは検出できませんでした。
There goes my only fucking theory. So there was some way to detect drugs, but like I said, maybe it is some kind of drug that has a very short lifespan in the body. I don't know if anything like that exists, but I know there's definitely drugs that have a very long detection phase. I don't know what the proper word is, but they're very long detectable even after the initial intake of the drug. But then I also know there are also drugs that have a very short lifespan in the body that even after intaking the drug, in a matter of hours, it'll be gone. You wouldn't have known it was there. But this, it was a suicide? I just cannot believe that. I cannot believe that. But, like, they would be able to tell, like, if they know for sure that it was his own nails that did it, like, obviously you could fake there being chunks of his own nails in there, or not fake it, but you could set that up. That's something you could set up. But clearly they would think about that, and, like, the pattern of the claws, right? The claw marks and scratches on his body, clearly those would line up with the size of his fingers and hands and whatnot. They would check that. They wouldn't just be like, oh, we saw a chunk of his fingernail in there and assumed, oh, he must have did it. Like, they would look at the actual, the way it's clawed at, and how the fingers would line up and whatnot. He says they check for drugs, but I cannot imagine it being anything else. I've never heard of such a thing. Yeah, I've never heard of such a thing happening while someone was fucking sober. While someone was in a sane state of mind. Yeah, no. This unnatural way of dying. If this wasn't a mysterious death, then what was? The way he died. In these 5 years, his death most resembled that of a curse. And that's done on purpose. As if to show both myself and Tomitake-san, who proclaimed there was no such thing as a curse, that we were wrong. And of course that blonde woman there was there to hear us say that.
他にもいくつか体内分泌物、発汗、脱毛等から富武さんはお亡くなりになる直前、
Yes.
極度の興奮状態だ。
He would have had to have been. There's no way he could have been in a sane state of mind. The question is, what caused the hysteria? That was a given. It's hard to believe someone could be in a sound state of mind while clawing out their throat. Okay, I'm glad we're all on the same page here.
手の傷と付近に落ちていた角材が一致しました。
Wounds on his hand matched a discarded piece of lumber found nearby.
周囲の木やガードレールに叩いた後。
What the fuck?
周囲に散乱する富武さんのつまりですね。
Meaning that while tearing at his own throat, he was swinging around a piece of lumber.
体からは本人によらない外傷がいくつか発見されました。
Uh-huh. So some kind of poison or toxin that there were external injuries, not self-inflicted.
富武さんは何者かに暴行を受けた可能性があるということです。 外傷の部位から見て複数犯の可能性もあります。
To summarize, Tomitake-san was surrounded and attacked. While wandering the night roads in a state of panic after being cornered, he picked up a piece of lumber and tried to fight back. Somewhere in there, he began madly tearing at his own throat, clawing at it. Then he died.
死亡推定時刻は21時から23時頃のようです。つまりお祭りで前原さんが富武さんとお話しして別れてからすぐの出来事なんですよ。
They say drugs weren't involved. That's what they say. But I feel like because clearly they knew Tomitake, because he doesn't look like, a pushover, right? Even just from what we can tell of his sprite in the Ryukishi style, like, he seems like he's pretty well built. He's got dog tags, which, kind of insinuates something. You know what? I'm do a quick little detour for me here. I'm gonna pull up the old website here, and I just want to look at his sprites. I just want to see how he's depicted in the other sprite sets. I'm very curious about that. Okay, there we go. Say, is my fucking internet not working? Jiro Tomitake sprites. There we go. Yeah, no, he seems pretty well built, I'd say. This website isn't working for dick, but feels like this website's fucking broken. Come on. I just want to see pictures. Why are you hiding this from me? Oh, here we go. I was looking at the... Nope. Never mind. I was like, clearly this site will help me. Oh, god damn it. Here we go. Yeah, no. Yeah, in both of the other sprite sets, in both the Steam sets and the Alchemist sets, he looks fairly muscular. He has dog tags. Yeah, I see. So that's the reason I even bring that up, right? Is because clearly, if they thought of taking him out, right? If they wanted to get rid of him, I think they knew they wouldn't be able to do it without, some way of affecting him, right? They needed to throw him off in some capacity. They kind of figure like, okay, here's this muscular guy who has dog tags, so we can only assume that he was, in fact, in the military at some point. So maybe just ganging up on him wouldn't be the answer. We'd have to do something beforehand to ensure that if we ganged up on him, we could still do this, right? So I'm guessing blonde woman, either with a drink or with a food, impaired him in some capacity. I'm guessing he caught on to what was happening. So he grabs a piece of lumber, starts swinging it around, while whoever ganged up on him, starts wailing on him. And then eventually the drug starts to kick in. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe it wasn't even they had planned on jumping him, but he must have realized at some point that he had been poisoned, right, by whatever blonde woman had given him. So once he grabbed a weapon and started attacking, they figured they had to defend themselves because, dear Christ, oh my God, he's not hurting himself yet. He's actually attacking us. So they start swinging back and beating on him in return. And eventually they see him start to harm himself and they figure they've won. So they just, I guess they probably do still keep swinging on him, but eventually he hurts himself. And I'm guessing they dumped the body somewhere else. Or maybe he died right there on the spot because they said his blood was all over the area. Interesting thing to consider. Interesting. A lot of interesting things going on here. Everyone signed Tomitaki-san's shirt, then parted ways. Right after that, oh yeah, he should have been with a woman. What about her?
行方不明です。
Convenient.
出勤もしていませんし、昨夜は自宅にも帰っていません。
How convenient.
事件に巻き込まれた可能性が極めて高いようです。
Yeah, that's what I am led to believe. For a while, I could only gaze off into space. I never would have thought that something unfortunate happening to somebody close to me could affect me this deeply. The time I had spent with Tomitaki-san was short. We went to the same festival, spent time together, took part in the same competition. He was one of us.
我々もあらゆる面から捜査を進めますが、村人たちは親代様のたたりの話になると、
Which is something,
口が重くなる。
you also saw with the storyline in the shell, where even if the villagers thought that there was foul play involved, they would just be adamant about, like, it was the curse. It was totally the curse. It could only be the curse. Because they didn't want the police to expose anything. That I knew well. I would have been none the wiser if not for Tomitaki-san, the outsider, telling me.
だから俺がひなみ沢の人間じゃないから。
I should have been angry that that was the reason he wanted to hear what happened from
この
me.
ままでは、富武次郎さんは親代様のたたりで死んだことになってしまいます。
He turned away from me and gazed far off into the distance.
綿流しの晩、神聖な儀式の時、無神経にカメラをバシャバシャやってたものだから、親代様の怒りに触れた。
Mm-hmm.
富武さんに親代様の罰が当たるわけがない。
Tomitaki-san had to have been killed by humans, and a cowardly group, no less. There's no way I'm going to let this end up being the fault of some curse.
私もそう思う。罰もたたりもあるわけがない。
The tense mood was cut with the man's hearty laugh.
つまり、そういうことですよ。たたりを信じていないひなみ沢の方の協力がわかりますね。
Neither Tomitaki-san nor I believed in curses. But with the way things were going, it would just end up with Tomitaki-san's death marking the 5th year. Which would mean that Hinamizawa had rejected Tomitaki-san. That was something I couldn't allow. Tomitaki-san was one of us. He didn't live in Hinamizawa, but he came every single year. In a sense, he was more of a resident than I was. There was no way that Tomitaki-san could have been cursed by Oyashiro-sama.
でもあの晩のことは何も知らないし。
いえいえ、何か気になるものを見たり聞いたりしたら教えてくださればいいんです。
If I see or hear, he was talking in the future tense.
物でも人でも噂でも何でも結構です。不確かなもので構いませんから。これ、私の電話番号です。不在でしたら出たものに伝言してくだされば結構です。
He handed me a piece of paper with his number on it, but I hesitated for a second. If I took it, then whether I wanted to or not, I'd be mired knee-deep in this matter.
富武さんの無念を晴らすためにどうかご協力をお願いしたいのです。
That's right. Why was I hesitating? I needed to find the murderer who killed my friend. I snatched up the piece of paper as a satisfied grin spread across his face.
今日ここでした話、絶対に他言無用でお願いします。
That's going to be a tough one to explain to my homies then, right? Because I was supposed to go back and play the game, and we've been away talking for God knows how long at this point. And they're like, "Oh, Keiichi, where did you go? Who was at the gate for you?" And what am I supposed to tell them? Everything we talked about is secret. Like, if I tell them, "Oh yeah, I met with a cop," they go, "Oh, what did they want to know?" Well, then if you tell them, "Oh, everything was secret, everything's confidential, I can't tell them anything," it's like, they had questions. I didn't have any answers, though. Like, just lie to them bold-faced like that? Like, especially with how long we've been gone, what am I supposed to tell them?
わかりました。
お友達にもないし、特に園崎さんや古出さんには絶対に知られないようにしてください。
Right, because the Furudes are connected to the shrine, and the Sonozakis are, I'm guessing, high up in the city's government, in the village government anyway. So he believes they're tied to it, which would once again mirror what I've seen from the shell.
園崎ってなんでだよ。事件に関係あるっていうのかよ。
With my friends' names being brought up so abruptly and being told to keep it a secret from them, I became rather angry.
煙に巻くなよ。ミオンは俺の大切な仲間だぞ。
I snapped at him, but he didn't seem to especially be offended.
言ってもいいですが、
言えよ。
He hesitated a little. During his gaze to the outside of the car, he began to speak after thinking for a bit.
ひなみ沢で起こった一連の事件は村ぐるみで引き起こす。
そんなことあるわけないじゃないか。
Give me a break. First of all, is there any proof of that?
証拠はあります。しかも過去の事件はここに解決し、
じゃあどう考え？
毎年綿流しの日にそれだけで十分に疑えると思いませんか？
Only the residents of Hinamizawa felt that the day of the Watanagachi was sacred. So basically, because incidents happened on that day, it was somehow related to Hinamizawa?
はじめはダム工事の、そして次に村の旧敵は次々に開始し、家庭はともかく結果はそうなのです。
Unfounded, unreasonable suspicion. But it couldn't just be shrugged off.
じゃあ次に別に村の敵だったわけ。
神主はダム騒動当時リーダーシップを期待されながらも積極的な働きがなかったため、
反感があったにしたってその次の主婦なんかどうだ。誘致した男の弟夫婦だったってだけの。そして富武さんにいたダム工事とは関係すらないじゃないか。ただよそ者だってだけの理由だぞ。
In the beginning, it fell on those related to the dam project. As the years went on, the enemy threshold of the victims had become much lower.
それがね、徐々に希薄になっていくのが。
Mm-hmm. They need to continue the curse, but now they need to make up even bolder excuses as to why the targets are being cursed.
何がだよ。
つまり村の敵でなくよそ者だというだけの理由で犠牲になりつつあるんですよ。
じゃあ来年の被害者は村のよそ者から選ばれるっていうのか。
あるいは引っ越してきたばかりの人かもしれません。
それってどういう。
I swallowed my words. Here, in Hinamizawa, the ones who would be considered the most outside would be my family. I was proof enough of that, wasn't I? I still couldn't really remember the names of the people I passed by. Then, the next victims, my family. Was he saying it was going to be me?
でもそれとミオンとどう関係。
詳しくは申し上げられませんが、園崎さん一家はダム騒動時の抵抗運動のそれも例えば園崎ミオンさんについて抵抗運動時いくつかの軽犯罪と公務執行妨害で補導歴があります。
I knew Mion had fought. This was the first I'd heard of her family leading the protests, though. Then, well, what did it all mean?
ミオンの一家が
そうまではもしもそうだったら一番確率が高い。
Right.
それだけのことなんです。
They were the most prominent family in the village. Not a very clear explanation. Felt like he'd magnificently avoided the details I really wanted to know.
誰が一体どれだけ関わっているのか。だからこそ村人に口外してほしくないのです。
Instead of answering, I gave a very bitter expression. It seemed that he understood it well enough.
じゃあこうかたたりを盲信する村人のそういうことでどうです？
What do you mean, how about that? How should I know? But the reasoning behind wanting me to not carelessly open my mouth about it wasn't too hard to comprehend. The perpetrator was here. It had nothing to do with the curse. He was definitely going to be caught by the police and made to pay for his crimes. None of the villagers should have anything to do with that process. It may cause those sensitive about the curse to just worry needlessly.
みんなが俺に心配させないために、今度は俺がみんなに心配させないために内緒にする番ってことなのか。
I was just talking to myself. Unlike me, everyone else had been worrying over these mysterious incidents yearly, and the incident this time probably means a lot more to them. I didn't want to burden them anymore. In the end, everything went as the man had wanted, as insipid as it was, but it couldn't be helped.
わかりました。俺だけの秘密にします。それでいいですよね。
沖宮署の大石です。
大石。
なんならクラちゃんでもいいですよ。
あ、いや、大石さんでいいです。
The way he said it was unpleasant, yet retained hints of politeness. He was the spitting image of a vulgar police officer. Though I'd never seen one this bulky before in the cop shows I watch.
時間を取らせすぎまし。お友達を待たせていますよね。
Honestly, I've seen plenty of bulky police officers.
もう戻った方がいいでしょう。
Yeah, so what do I tell them? Officer, what do I tell them? Because they're going to ask, who was the visitor and what did we talk about? Why did it take up so much time? Like, help me with a cover story here if you don't want me to tell them the truth. The door opened with a click, and in streamed the oppressive heat. It was blistering outside of the car. Was it really this hot of a day? It was an almost cruel heat as opposed to the mechanical coolness inside the car. It was as if the land of Hinamizawa itself suddenly hated me. Felt a little sad as that thought crossed my mind.
お友達を誤解しないでくださいよ。
I refrained from telling him that it was too late to say something self-serving.
前原さんが何も見つけず、それは村が関わっていないという。
見たり聞いたりしたら連絡。俺は探偵じゃない。変な期待しないでくださいよ。
しませんし、探偵になんかならない。今までのように自然、その中で見聞きしたことを教えてくだされば結構なんです。
I hastily made my way back to the school building after giving him a quick bow. Hey, so like maybe give me a cover story though?
またお会いしましょう。さようなら、前原君。
I returned to the school building without looking back. Hey, but maybe give me a cover story though. I don't know how much time had passed. I didn't feel bad for keeping them waiting, but right now there was a lot on my mind. Tomitake-san's death was hard enough as it was, but I think that there was the possibility of a village conspiracy. Worse still, there was also a chance that Mion was involved? Nonsense. Impossible. Not Mion, Reina, Satoko, or Rika-chan. I mean, Reina's the one that confuses me the most, quite honestly. But the other three, like, knowing now that one of the victims shares the same surname as Satoko, like, concerns me. Knowing that Rika is connected to, you know, the family of that runs the shrine, like, that's, you know, obviously concerning. Mion being connected to the most prominent family in the village, like, Reina's the one that stands out. Reina's the only one that I'm like, how could you be connected? How could you or your family be connected? It was a group that attacked Tomitake-san. It was. It was a group that attacked Tomitake-san, and the last one we were with was Reina. So if there's anyone with like plausible deniability, right? Even still, who could the perpetrators be? Could it be they were hiding here somewhere in Hinamizawa? Who's to say they're even hiding? As far as they know, they got away with it. The only person that was actually seen with him prior is the one who's gone missing. Everyone else, they're fucking here. They got nothing to hide because no one knows they have any connection. And no. All I could say for certain was that I knew that Mion couldn't be the perpetrator. Do you? Do you? Buddy, we got to go back to the very first game that we played with Mion specifically. She's trying her best to cover up, right? But if you ignore the obvious answer, simply because that just couldn't be the case, there's no way. There must be a deeper strategy at hand. You ignore the actual answer. Now, I'm not saying it's Mion specifically, but... Huh? I was startled to hear Reina's voice. Reina clutched her head while flailing about. It looks like you're just self-destructing over here. Wow.
ちょっと先生に職員室呼ばれてさ。
素行が悪くてかわいそうです。
ま、こっちも白熱してたし、もういい時間だから次で最後のゲームにしよう。
俺の今の持ち点ビリ確定じゃないのかよ。
レナマイナス1点。
Oh, right, because you made a guess. You just made a random guess, yeah. The heck? Her score is lower than mine. I wasn't even playing.
罰ゲームはレナが1人でか、ケイちゃんと2人でかを決める最終戦。
冗談じゃねえ。罰ゲームはレナ1人でやってくれ。
ケイチ君と2人で勝とうって約束したのに、ずっと待ってたんだよ。
そりゃ俺が悪いな。
Well, that's the thing. Even if you both win this next one, she's still the loser. Because if you... Well... Right. That's true. If you let Reina make the guess... Because you can't both answer at the same time. Because then obviously it's like, oh, something's up. But also that's just against the rules. One person answers at a time, right? So I guess, yeah, you let Reina get the point so to where you're tied for last. I followed my initial plan of showing Reina my cards, but I didn't say who was the criminal and just waited for her to call.
わかったよ。犯人は私。凶器は毒物で。どうかな。
おお、レナ。また当てずっぽいじゃないの？
レナの正解ですよ。じゃあこれでケイチさんも罰ゲーム決定ですわね。やったー。ケイチ君、
ああ、一緒に頑張ろうな。
It's my fault, so I have no choice.
ではゲームセット。トップは私、園崎、ビリは前原圭一と竜宮レナ。
Everyone applauded and the game ended. The problem now was the penalty.
じゃあ使いっ走りの系の買ってくるものはトップの何
を買いに。
薬局は禁じ手にしような。どうしたの？
は？薬屋なんかに用ないよ。おじさんが買ってほしいものはね、このメモに書いてあるから。
いっぱい書いてあるよ。
A lot. Damn it, what is she making us buy?
豆腐2丁、シャンプーとリンス、みりんに油揚げ。
She just has her grocery list.
なんだこりゃ。
罰ゲームってよりお買い物に見えるでございますわね。今日のミーは勝つ気満々でした。
快速第7条。罰ゲームの内容にさ、はい、お金。シャンプーはうち果物物語だからね。よろ。
これお前が頼まれたお使いだろう。
I promised myself that if I won next time, I'd make her go buy hemorrhoid cream. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. What the fuck did Rika say about poison? I was just thinking about, I'm like, there's something in the games the kids are playing, right? But there was the there was the point where someone said, "Oh, I couldn't figure out." I think it was Satoko. She said, I couldn't figure out. I almost had it. I couldn't figure out if it was the pistol or the poison." And Rika says, "I would never use a pistol. I prefer using poison and like watching them slowly die or something like that." Rika says that specifically. Uh-huh. 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 Something to keep in mind, I suppose. Let's view our new tips. More than 4 perpetrators. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Go on, tell me what you
自
know.
分で喉をかき破った出血性ショック死。爪の間に皮膚片が残っておった。間違いなく本人のものじゃわい。傷の形も一致する。
Yeah, the shape of the scars matches.
直接死因が実。
分かっとるわい。人為的にこういう。
背中が痒くてかきすぎて血が出ちゃうのとはちょっとわけが違いますからね。
Some of Tomitake's fingernails have been pulled out. Fingernails actually rip off surprisingly easily. But it really hurts. Under normal circumstances, the pain would prevent you from completely pulling them out. Also, there were a lot of bruises on Tomitake's body. It's clear from the shape of them that he was assaulted first by someone, or a group of people.
分泌物から見て、仏は極度の興奮状態にあったのは間違いないの。
では乱闘になって興奮のあまり自分の喉を引っかき出したってことですか。
It is
襲った
possible.
連中さぞや度肝を抜かれたでしょうな。
It is possible, in such an abnormal environment, a person could perform acts that a sane individual couldn't possibly imagine. Of course, those are very rare cases.
実はな、大石。仏が武器にしたらしい角材な。砂粒とか、ガードレールの塗装片とか、そんなのしか出んかったぞい。
What's in the paint?
星の服の繊維とか。
出んかった。仏は犯人を殴っとらん。
Right, he was swinging at them, but...
あるいは、殴った角材を星が持ち去った
なら、わざわざ角材なんて置いていきませんよ。全部持ってっちゃいます。富武氏は結構体格もいいし、肌も焼けてるし。
よく運動しとるようだの。
Can't imagine what kind of sports he did when he was alive, but I think his physical strength would be on the higher side, meaning he would be difficult to overpower in a brawl. If a man with such a physique sensed he was in danger and swung the plank around frantically, it's just unthinkable that wouldn't even nick the perpetrator. And his opponent was unarmed. This guy had a wooden plank, so you'd think he'd hit them at least once.
こんだけ体格のいい相手を取り囲んだ。
アホ、それは大石の方が得意だろうが。アクタル時代を思い出さんかい。
If I was to take down this guy, how many would I need? When a group wants to take down big prey, it's fundamental to attack with numbers. I'd guess about 4. Even if there was a gap in their strength, they'd manage.
だとすると、祭りで泥酔した4人以上のグループが怪しいとなるかの。
A group of 4 or more. Just, if they had that many, then couldn't they have hidden the body in a less obvious location? Or did he somehow break away from that fatal predicament? Then there would be no reason to commit suicide. Moreover, I still can't comprehend the irregular way he died. It's full of mysteries.
こっちもそこは重視しとる。徹底的に調べるつもりだが、あまり期待できんな。何しろ、過去にこんな例はないんだからな。
期待はしませんよ。ですが結果を楽しみにしてます。
おいさん、課長が呼んでるっす。
すみません。ではまた来。
おお、いいお年をの。
Interesting. And a search notice. Go on. Tell me more. Jiro Tomitake, deceased, resided in a cheap hotel in Shishibone City. Registered under the name Jiro Tomitake. Pen name. Oh, it's not his real name. Travels via folding bike. No license. The bicycle was found 300 meters away, abandoned at the side of a forest path, present on the day of the festival, accompanied by the missing Mio Takano. Mio Takano. See, that's why the name Takano stood out to me. I did know the name of that character. I do not know her involvement in the story at all, but I have seen people talk about the character, like mention that name specifically. That's why, like, during the community notes thing, or the community notice, I saw the name Takano and I was like, is that who I think it is? So we know that Takano and the Sonozakis are involved in making the festival happen. And obviously the Shrine family as well, which would include the Furudes. Was seen around 9 p.m. by police. Location afterwards, unknown. Held residence in Hinamizawa for 1 week each season for the last 5 to 6 years. Freelance photographer specializing in wild birds. Check with magazine companies. Nothing suspicious in the film located among the articles of the deceased. While it was among the articles of the deceased. Mere act of violence. From the contents of his wallet, he spent most of his time around Tokyo and Chiba, along the Sobu National Railway line. No individual matching the name Jiro Tomitake in the residency records of any of the Tokyo wards. Compare teeth to dental records. Send to Metro Police. Attach a photo. Send to Metro Police. Contact magazines regarding Jiro Tomitake. Mio Takano, missing. Nurse at the Irie Clinic. Became close to Tomitake through her passion for wild bird photography. Resides in Okinomiya District. Single. Witnessed accompanying Tomitake on the festival grounds, currently missing. Abducted? Or maybe a suspect. An important person of interest. Had no motive to kill the deceased. Squabble from jealousy. Need to thoroughly investigate the relationship. Place of work, etc. Need to get information from the police on scene again. I want some cream puffs. 4 jumbo ones. Oishi. I'll love to add that at the end of my investigative notes as well. Yes. This observation. Also, cream puffs. Sounds tasty right about now. I think we'll continue. Once again on a school day. But I think this is where I'll wrap it up for today. This feels like a good stopping point. So now we've definitely entered into some drama with the story. I started off this recording session saying there hadn't been really much drama yet, and then we got hit with all of it. Interesting. Very interested to see how this develops, right? Because obviously then the talk of eventually Tomitake's death will become news. The town will talk about it. Obviously the classmates will become aware of this in some capacity, and it'll be brought up at some point, I'm sure. But I'm curious to see how the situation evolves from here. Because I don't think we're done here. I don't think it's just, oh, Tomitake is dead. I wonder how that happened. I guess we'll wait till next year and see who dies next. Like, clearly things are going to evolve from here, but in what capacity? Because clearly people are going to start eyeballing Keiichi. Especially, I'm sure someone... Because that's the thing, the teacher knows about who called for Keiichi. Right? She would know about that. There's someone waiting for you outside. So I think the teacher would have some idea that Keiichi was approached by a police officer. And especially with how long they spent talking, she would have some idea that he had, maybe said something. So how that plays into the story, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure it will play into the story. Somehow, someway, people are going to learn that Keiichi was talking to a police officer, which is going to paint a target onto his family's back for sure. So, like I said, very interested to see how the story continues to develop. But like I said, this is where I'm going to end it here for today. So hopefully I will see y'all in the next one. Till then, peace.